the blood clot vibes. Yes, family, large up yourself, pick up yourself. It's your host, Sila Shalom, coming in with the ones and twos. You know how we do. It's a blood clot vibes. Yes, family. Shalom in the building. Yes, family. Some blood clot vibes. Yes, family. You know how we do. Yes, sir. It's the blood clot vibes. Now we have to straighten this thing out, Star. I mean, Star. Where's it, Star? It's the vibes. How y'all feeling today? Big up yourself, watch up yourself. Make sure to hit them likes as you come on in the building. As we get this day started. Shout out Creator Gang in the building. I just decided to get on feeling good. We get on. No particular topic. That's why it's a blood clot vibes, because it's a vibes. You know what I mean? Got a couple lessons I'm in the making. I'm working on. Soon come, yeah. I see the family treading. I see the family are treading. Where's it? Large up yourself. Where's it? Line up, y'all. Maxim, where's it? Maxim up one. Yes, I. Dread Cosmo. Where's it, Yara? Elijah. Big man, that. Where's it? On the lookout, Messiah family. Resolve the oral life. Peace to the God. Child of the Most High, Iman, see you. You know, we just vibing out, enjoying this beautiful afternoon. As we go live talk what we talk, do what we do. You know what I mean? Shout out Malachi Mack, we went live yesterday. Or the other day. No, that was the other day did that was it last night? I think it was last night. Did the journal. Oh man. Paul is an Edomite fan. For all y'all Israelites talking all that. Y'all can't stand the Edomite. Y'all New Testament gospel is from an Edomite. That's where y'all gotta rise above the carnal flesh, man. You don't constantly be getting caught in the snare if you stay stuck on the carnal flesh. You gotta rise above the flesh. Because now you gotta admit that Edomite gave y'all niggas the New Testament. Let me dump this real quick, yeah? Run the rhythm. I roll up a spliffer thing, yes? Yari said, yeah, I roll up a spliffer thing. You know how we do, yo. Keep it spiritual around these parts. We keep the creator first. It's interesting, people have a hard time digesting the creator. We tell them the creator is the one who makes vortexian energy. They'll still question themselves, well, like, who is it? Who did it? And we'll reinforce and say the creator. They're so used to seeing a man do everything in creation. But they've been taught that a man floating in space is the almighty creator. Do we have to show them different? You understand? Honoring humility in the building, it's a vibe. What it do, King? Over here talking about how Paul was a goddamn Edomite that you brought out. Niggas can't say nothing now. Them can't see a blood clot thing when uno know Paul is a blood clot Edomite. But where I say? Your New Testament religion is a blood clot Edomite vibes? That's what y'all telling me? You don't want Rasta man to get up on them things, you know, and scrutinize their ass clot. Big up to the creator gang in the building. I see the fam chiming in. We just vibing out, no particular topic. We just vibing out. I wish we could have kept these debates going, man. You know what I mean? Niggas is running scared and don't want to step up to the plate and defend their God, defend their Bible, defend their doctrine. It's all good, though. You know what I mean? You know how we do. Iron sharpen iron. It's a vibe out right now, you know. It's a continual vibes. Spiritual vibes. You dig? I'm gonna get into some vibes soon, yes? You know, people are raised the question, yo, what's up with the debates, man? They running scared, yo. You know, Sonetta platform was the toughest platform to go to. We brought the energy there, and them niggas ran. You know what I mean? The nigga tried to set up a debate with Tazariak. He ran. He got them tucked his tail and ran through the tulips. He ran off. He's scared. JJ was supposed to debate Cosmo and Cal. I don't know what the fuck happened to that shit. Black Jesus supposed to step up and debate the information. He complained about, oh, they got to debate this person. And you see the excuses niggas come with? Nigga, we don't come with no excuses, nigga. Put the information on the table and show and prove. Save the gossip for later. I ain't got time for the mouth mumbling. You dig? Niggas want to mouth mumble about, I am the House of K, HOK championship and all. Get the fuck out of here with that silly ass goddamn talk, man. Come defend your fake ass God who goddamn said, thou shalt not murder and kill thy brother. And then God is conspiring, killing thy brother. Defend that shit. How you going to defend an unhonorable God? The God in the Bible is not even honorable, my nigga. If you was to compare your God of the Bible to street shit, you wouldn't even fuck with your God. If we compared God of the Bible to street shit, you niggas wouldn't fuck with your God. You'll say your God is a deceiver. He a liar. He said he ain't gonna go behind my back and do this, and he did it. That's what's going on with the biblical God, yo. Blood clot, deception, and lies. And it's sad because, damn, niggas is headlong in the Bible. Even the Israelites say nothing but Christians now. I'm starting to conclude that these Israelites say nothing more than Christians, man. They operate the same way as Christians. They worse than the Christians, to be honest. They worse than the Christians. It's a blood clot vibes. Yes, family, you know how we do. We have to light up a split before we start the day and start the session. Start the session. That's why I don't think these niggas don't want to get in the ring. Because they either been watching my videos and they've been seeing how I've been exposing this biblical God to be false. Now, don't get me wrong. See that big spliff I burned? Big spliff I burned. Yes, Sonny. Where's it, Sonny? Let's see you, Sonny. Large up yourself, Sonny. Yes, let's see you. Big up yourself. Yes, I long live Noble Jew Ali. Big up to Noble Jew Ali and the Moorish movement. I got me a Circle 7 Quran, fam. I got it. Shout out to the Moors because technically the Moors really set this shit off. The Moors is the one who really set this shit off. Before the Nation of Islam was the Moors, them goddamn Moors, them niggas go back to the 20s, my nigga. In the 30s with Noble Drew Ali and them boys. Shout out to the Moors, man. Yeah. It's a blood clot vibes. Let's see what I have to deal with now. We just got off a direct inspiration from Jah the Creator. See what I have to deal with. Y'all got any questions you can throw in the chat? We just vibing out. Shit, who wanna come on? I'll drop the link in the chat. Who wanna come on and chop it up with the God? Wanna come chop it up with the Hydra, yeah? Man, I was watching that Sarnetta with Naptalio. Oh man, that shit was sad, Joe. That shit was sad, sad, sad. These false gods have done a work on the minds of the people. He blatantly showed contradictions in the text, and they sit up there trying to defend it. Showed the verse where it says God, no man has seen God. They showed the verse where it says God spoke to man face to face, and they were still in denial. She was still in denial. She couldn't step into the ring with me, yo. She couldn't have stepped into the ring with me. Not with that type of mindset, yo. She's still wet behind the ears, man. I thought she was a little bit more seasoned than that. You know what I mean? When I seen that, I'm like, nah, these motherfuckers ain't ready. That's why she backed out the debate. You ain't ready for a nigga like me. You ain't ready for this lion. You see that lion? See that? You ain't ready for that. Stick to the goddamn Cubs. You still a Cub in this game. Trim this runs. Yes, sir. Keith, what's good? Kenneth, Messiah. Big up yourself, yeah? Yeah, man. Niggas gotta have to step up their biblical God, man. What you gonna do? It's a new book calling your God out, man. It's a new bully on the block calling your waspy. You know what I mean? It's a new bully on the block. Yo, it's a book. If y'all ain't never checked out, y'all should check out. It's called Antiquities Unveiled. You know what I mean? Pam, you should check it out. I don't know if you heard of it. Antiquities Unveiled. Came out like in the late 1800s. It's another channel book. And it talks about those of the first century coming back, talking about how it was in the first century, exposing Christianity to be the fraud that it is. It's called Antiquities Unveiled. Let me just show the book in case you ain't see it. There, read a couple of passages, maybe. Antiquities unveiled. That's it right there. See. Forgotten books. Antiquities unveiled. If you ain't got this book, this is a book you definitely want to have in your possession. You can download the PDF or you can order it online. But this is a book you definitely want to have. Ancient voices from the spirit realm disclose the most startling revelations, proving Christianity to be of heathen origin. See that? Truth crushed by priests shall rise again. Second edition, Philadelphia Oriental, published. Look at the date, 1894. Not too long after the Owaspy. But what, 13 years after the Owaspy? Huh? 1894 is the time. Copyrighted in 1892. So this is right along the branks of the Owaspy when spirit communion was at a high. Got a couple statements. Let's state. One who loves truth more than commendation of men, left on record as a legacy to the human race, a sentiment at once so truly religious, broad, and elevating that we quote his lines in this connection. The world is my country, to do good, my religion. Pain! With the same broad and philanthropic spirits which inspire the above, we dedicate this work to the world. So, like I said, this is another book written around the time 13 years after the Owaspy, and it's a channel version, and it's exposing all the works of the first century. You got Apollonius of Tyana, the Nazarene. This is where a lot of the stories of the New Testament come from. The symbol of the crucified lamb and the crucified man. So the first person is touching on this, a little bit of Apollonius of Tyana. So look what it says. Apollonius, the Nazarene, the Jesus of the Christians, Apollonius of Tyana, the Nazarene, born 2 AD, died 99 AD. His history and teachings appropriated to formulate Christianity. See that? The original Gospels of the New Testament brought from India. Uh-oh. And then it's going to go into other people that the book is talking about. Damas, the pupil of Apollonius, the apostles of Timothy written to Damas in India, the source of Christianity. See that? They got a lot of works going on in India. Then you got Deva, Bodhisattva, a Buddhist prophet. The original Gospels as under by the Hindus, received from the spirit source through Busantis as a medium. See, this is channel work right here that we're reading. But it's just going through a list of people who's mentioned in the book who came to channel this information. This is a good book you need to get because all these people is being conjured up or channeled to talk about how it was in the first century. You got Pope Gregory the VII. He's up in there. Vespasian, a Roman Empire. He's up in there. I heard Mally talking about him earlier with what's his name? Josephus, the controversial Josephus mentioned him. I heard Mally talking about he was a Messiah, and here he's in the Antiquities unveiled, coming back in spirit. It says, Vespasian, a Roman emperor, no such person among the Jews as Jesus of Nazareth. The books of the Jews, disease produced by spirits, Apollonius, a great medium. And then we got Agrippa II, king of Judah, the true version of the trial of Paul before Agrippa as given in Acts. See that? See that? This would be a good read for you to add on to what you got going on with the Paul situation, Mally. These are these people that came in the late 1800s in spirit to a medium and reveal this information. This shit is deep. And then you got Pliny the Younger right here. His letter to Trajan refers to the Essenes and not the Christians. See that? See that, Israel? Refers to who? The Essenes and not the Christians. You want to read this book, yo. I read this book years ago. I'm going to have to goddamn go back through it again, but you want to read this book. It exposes a lot. That origin, Christianity and paganism identical. The narrative relating to the person Jesus Christ derives from the Greek and the Egyptian gods, god makers. Uh-oh. It says what did it say? Look at that. Come on now. The person Jesus Christ derived from the Greek and Egyptian god makers. We already know that Serapis is a composite of Osiris, and Serapis itself is Greek. And then look what it got. Your boy Flavian Josephus is in this motherfucker, a Jewish historian. Look what it say about him. The reference to Jesus of Nazareth fraudulently interpolated by some Christians copier of his history. No such person as Jesus of Nazareth existed in the time of Joseph. Look at that. Look at that. This is what they bring it out. Flavius, Philostratus, you say? Biographer of Apollonius of Tyana, the non-existent of the Christian religion in his day. Apollonius worshipped in Rome as the savior of men. Ever a fort made by popes and emperors to destroy the history of Apollonius. See that? Apollonius, fam, that's the goddamn nigga you need to be looking at. That's the real Jesus you ain't never knew. Apollonius of Tyana. And it's crazy because let me see if they got the image of Apollonius in this joint too. Hold on. And strikingly enough, it resembles the image of whatchamacallit, Joshua and Waspi. Apollonius. So this is a depiction of Apollonius. Well, but they got him looking like that goddamn Jesus that you familiar with. This is the depiction of Apollonius of Tyana. And this is the depiction. That's the depiction of Apollonius of Tyana, but this is the depiction they got of Yeshua and Noaspi. Look at this. Look at this. Yeah, come on. Look, this is Yeshua depiction in the Oaspi. And this Apollonius of Tyana right here. Oaspi version, Apollonius. Striking resemblance, nonetheless. That's how Apollonius of Tyana looked. So you got three things. You got a couple things going on here. You got Serapis, the deified savior. Then you have Apollonius of Tyana, who was worshipped as a savior to men. And then you have Yeshua, the son of Mary and Joseph, who was classified as savior among men. But that could have later been added during the compilation of these tales. So here's some more people that they reference in the book. Coming on down, they got Ptolemy, Philadelphus. That's the nigga who compiled the Torah. The Tanakh. The Septuagint, if I'm not mistaken. The Alexandria Library, where the principal parts of the creeds and tenets of all religious systems were obtained. Look what they got. Your boy Pontus Pontius Pilate, persecutor of the Jews. Look what it say about him. Hold up. Highlight it. Look what it say. He knew nothing of the Jesus of the Christians. Jesus, Ananias, a robber, tried before him and crucified by the Roman soldiers. This testimony positively corroborates in our own times. So the person who got crucified before Pontius Pilate was a guy by the name of Yeshua Onanis, a robber, tried before him and crucified by the Roman soldiers. See that? So they could have took some of his story and amalgamated in during the time of the compiling of these scrolls with Constantine or whoever compiled the New Testament. The Peace on Roman Family. So, and this is just the content. This is not even going into the actual breakdown of these niggas talking and displaying, you know what I mean, what happened during them times. So all these people I'm showing you are people who this medium channeled from the first century in the late 1800s. And they're giving their testimony directly, the people directly from what happened. So this is Pontius Pilate directly. This is him in spirit talking. And we got a couple other names, familiar with, none familiar with. All these names. So all these people you see here is who was conjured up. That's revealing information in this book about what took place with Christianity. They're basically exposing how Christianity was fake. They even got Constantine in here. Look, Constantine the Great. Fettered by the truth. The Buddhistic gospels mingled with the teachings of Pataman. So that's what they let you know, that all these teachings are commingled. Christianity is a amalgamated religion. Mm-hmm. Look, you got Manito in here. They like to reference Manito. This nigga came back in spirit. Manito, an Egyptian priest, the god Osiris of the Egyptians. Materialization as understood by the ancients. The sun personified. Huh? The sun personified. The revered savior of all nations. So you got Manito. Look here. Ignatius of Antioch. I might be pronouncing that. But look, it talk about the Essenians again. Patriots of the Essenians. Apollonius of Tyana investigated the religion of the Essenians, the sacred writings of the Essenians, blended with those Apollonius received from India. See that? Even Apollonius came among the Essenians to learn. And Yeshua came from the Essenians, so Apollonius and Yeshua cannot be the same person. But what Constantine and them boys did, or when they started compiling this text, is that they amalgamated all these literatures from Egypt to India, Greek. They mixed it all up. So now we got to untangle the mixing. Look, Titus, Livius, a Roman historian, the birth, life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ as portrayed in the what? Annual passage of the sun through the constellation of the zodiac. See that? See that? They letting you know this shit was esoteric. They talking about the solstice, the winter solstice. Some more names. This book is full of people who from that first century revealing that what we think was going on in the first century wasn't so. So do your investigation on the Antiquities Unveiled. Powerful, powerful book, yo. I read this shit years ago. Look what they got. And of course, with all things, you got to read it with a fine tooth. They got Mizraim, the Chaldaic king of Egypt, the worship of the Egyptians, the sign of the zodiac, new facts in history, Mizraim, the name of a king and not the name of a country as claimed by historians. Interesting. Oh, Mizraim, that's Egypt. You know what I mean? That's the son of Ham. So, like I said, these are just the content. We get into when you dive into actual stories of each one of these people, it's interesting. Some of them are lengthy, some of them are not that lengthy when you read it. It's interesting. I'm just skimming through so y'all can get a view. Look at this. It's that Phratos, king of Taxila. The visit of Apollonius to India receives the sacred testimony of the mountain of light circled from Larcus. Light upon the book of Matthew. Millions of spirits would rather cease to exist than that these revelations should come to mankind. Wow, look at that. It's going to be a great exposure going. We're already exposing, everybody out here exposing Christianity, but there's some things that's going to blow your mind once you find out. So this is a book you definitely want to put on your list, Antiquities Unveiled. Look what it say here. Look at that. Akaba, a Jewish rabbi, chronological forgers restored to in order to make the Jewish religion appear ancient. Wow, you hear that? I done heard some of these African African historians say this. Walter Williams, who said he said the Jewish religion is not the BC religion, but an AD. And what does it say here? Chronological forgers restored to in order to make the Jewish religion appear ancient. Ain't that some shit? 330. So you go to page 330 and read about that right there. So I'm just showing you this book. Definitely a book you want. You heard about Moses Maimonides? That's who I think, who was his name? Walter Williams tried to say who's the one who wrote the Bible or the Old Testament or something like that. The Unveiled Codex, absolute proof that Apollonius of Tyana was St. Paul. Wait a minute. It's an absolute proof. We don't have to copy this codex right here. See what the hell going on with that. You don't look that up. That's some homework to do right there. The Unveiled Codex. Look that up. Look at this. Look at this. The Sabian changes the Hindu Krishna into the Jew Jesus Christ. Julian the apostate did not recant upon his deathbed. The nigga said he did not recant. I ain't going with that bullshit. See this shit running deep. Anomus the Great, Arian leader. Whence came the name Jesus Christ? Why the Council of Nicaea, the Council of Nice, was convened the attempt of the Emperor Constantine to blend the prevailing heathen religion. So they're talking about all these things in this book. It's an interesting read. I definitely want to check this out. I read this book some years ago. I was like, yo, this shit is dope. Let's see what it says here. Look what it says here. Frederick, what's that? Jacinus. The Hebrew language derived from the ancient Chaldean tongue. Etymology of the name Moses, the scribe Ezra revises the account of Daniel. Interesting. It says the Hebrew language derived from the Chaldean tongue. Interesting. So we're scrolling down, just looking at the different chapters in this book. This shit is deep, heavy information, and it's a lot too. Obviously, all these people in here. What? Jonathan ben Uzel, one of the writers of the Targums, Moses, a creation of Jewish priests, the legends and traditions of the Jewish people extended no further than Ezra the scribe. Jewish and Chaldean history identical, every man and woman their own redeemer. So that's all right. So they're touching on some things here. Look at this. Sadius Gaon. It said the Jewish had no history as a people anterior to 450 BC. Look at that. And 450 BC is the time of the compiling of the Tanakh. And keep in mind, it says they had no history. And in Ezra, it said that the laws was done away with. They was burnt away. So they would have had no records of history. So they would have been looking like nomadic people at this time. Interesting. Mm-hmm. So we just going through the different names. Saint Jerome, Saint Germain. The original Gospels written in the Syriac Hebraic tongue, copied into the Armenian tongue by Moses Korenesis, the Maronite monks of Mount Lebanon, have valuable manuscripts in their possessions. See that? When we investigate this, this shit is cracking a lot of goddamn codes in here. A lot of gems. Mm-hmm. Look what it say about Zoroaster. Let's see what it say. Zarathustra came to niggas. Zarathustra. Startling disclosures. The Jewish book of Daniel contains the actual earthly experience of Zarathustra. See that? We know that. See, Owaspians know this. Because Zarathustra was eating up in the lion's den. What did it say? Startling disclosures. The Jewish book of Daniel contains the actual earthly experience of Zarathustra. Zarathustra, not Daniel, thrust into the lion's den. His works appropriated by the Jews. See that? The book of Revelation and the book of Daniel open up the secrets of the Antiquity when properly interpreted and understood. A description of the ancient religion. Confounded in history with the elder Zarathustra. The disputed question, who was the Darius mentioned in the book of Daniel, settled at last. Corrections made in history. See that? See that? We know that the lion's den, so Daniel's in the lion's den, that shit is Zarathustra. And the hanging of the two thieves on the cross of the New Testament of Jesus is Zarathustra too. Yeshua was stoned to death. The hanging on the cross with two thieves, that comes from the story of Zarathustra too. That's why the shit called Antiquities Unveiled. Unraveling this shit. Memoriam of Jonathan M. Roberts. I think that's the medium right there. It says, it is only natural that the readers of this volume should desire to know something of the life and characteristics of the individuals who intellectually labors contributed to much to its value. Highlight some of this. That's earnestness and sincerity were marked elements of his character. No one could doubt who heard him speak or read the lines from his pen. To illustrate, we quote the following from one of his editorials. Dear friends and Patreons, it is true that we have not known what rest or recreation was during the daily and nightly vigils, which we have been forced to keep, but what of that? Who is there that is worthy to serve truth? Who is not willing to forget self in the grandeur purpose, in the grander purpose of contributing to the common good of mankind? So we're just giving a little briefing about the guy. Let me read some more. His was a life full of usefulness, and his good deeds were many. When his great soul had outgrown its mortal surroundings, and the measure of his earthly life was filled, he passed on to the other fields of labor in the spheres beyond, leaving this world better for his having lived in it. Okay. I guess they were talking about the medium, who the information was channeled through. Jonathan M. Roberts was born in Montgomery, what's that? C.O. Peno, December 1821, and was a man of fine education as well as marked ability. He studied law and practiced it for some years, from which he retired previously to his taking up the editorial pen. Prior to the war, he was an active abolitionist, and being a man of strong temperament and positive conviction, he became one of the leaders of that party. So this damn like another John Newbro we dealing with here and shit. Another spiritualist, another medium. Subsequently, he became an active Republican and spoke effectively during several campaigns. About 1873, he was convinced of the truth of spiritualism through receiving communications from his father. All right, now we get into the nitty-gritty. Now it's starting to get interesting. From his father, who, when in earth life, was prominent in national affairs and a member of the U.S. Senate. In 1878, Mr. Roberts started Mind and Matter, a weekly journal devoted to the interests of spiritualism, and as its able editor gained a well-earned reputation as a journalist and writer, he was a great student in ancient religious history, and made extensive research therein, prompted by the revelation received from many ancient and modern spirits. Thus, amidst his untiring labor for the good of others, he passed to spirit life February 28th, 1888. So he would have been around during John Newbro. I'm sorry. Now the question is, do these niggas know each other? Because they damn near on the same page. At his home in Berlin, New Jersey, in the 67th year of his age. So he died at 67. Compiler's preference. So it goes into a part where he describes the actual communicating with the angels. Let me scroll down. And like I said, I'm just showing you the book. I can read this on your own time, like really go through it with a fine tooth. But I'm just skimming through. Come down, because that's just the preference. Y'all can read the preference when y'all get time. Y'all can download the PDF. When the public attention was first called to Antiquities Unveiled, we were uncertain whether the people had reached a point in human progress where they could accept its revelation. Bitter opposition was expected from those who were in sympathy with the Christian religion, as well as from many others who had not the courage to probe deeply for truth on heathen or Christian grounds. But we were not prepared for such an eager demand for the book from people of all classes, even from far-off Indian. A call was received for a large number of copies, a sequel to the interest manifested by Eastern philosophers. All right, so I ain't gonna read all this shit. I'm just skimming through, like I said, reading here and there, giving you bits and pieces, putting you up on game about this book called Antiquities Unveiled, if you ain't heard of it. I just want to get to the part where it touches on Apollonius of Tyana some more. What's up? Yeah, but check this. Let's read some of this. And look, it says the banner of light. The banner of light is the same people who was John Nubro wrote to the banner of light about how the Owaspy was compiled. When you look up how the Owaspy was compiled, you see banner of light, Boston, Massachusetts. Now let's look. Watch this. Owaspy index. Is it on here? Let's see. What happened? She bought. I was looking for the it may not be a whole lot. I'm tripping. Let me go here. We got Yahshua looking like Apollonius of Tyana. You know what? I'll come back to that. But for those who read the Owaspy, they know the banner of light is the same people who John Nubro wrote to when he revealed the Owaspy. The reception accorded to Antiquities Unveiled by the press, the banner of light, Boston, Massachusetts, the historical data given are in themselves a marvel. The Truth Seeker, New York. The book is bristling with points, deals with wide range of subjects, and quotes extensively from well-known authors. It shows where the early Christians found the myths and rites which they adopted and relabeled, and which the Western world now knows as Christianity. See that? That's what the shit revealing. From the Kansas City Journal, April 24th, 1893. This is one of the most remarkable books that has ever found its way to our literature table and can hardly be described without a repetition of its own history. The contents are remarkable to the last degree, and anyone reading them and comparing the message with the comments can see that no one intellect could have been the author of all. All through the comments can be seen and felt the intellectual methods and idioms of the one mind that did the work. But of the 160 papers from other assumed authors, not two of them are alike in any respect. A fact that will puzzle critics more than anything else about the book. There can only be one or two positions, which shall not pretend to decide upon in any way. Either that the whole book is an ingenious and exceedingly learned and able invention, or has a basis for its contents and arguments. Its claims at once raised the question that is now so rifled over all the world of the credibility of occult methods and testimony. No scholar can read this book without intense interest, for its contents contain within them intrinsically so much that is plausible, and so thoroughly scholars and circumstantials in statements that the frank-minded are perplexed as to which category to assign it. It is the strangest book in its claims, in contents, and in the fascinating interest of its history, of its story that can be found in occult literature. So these are some of the statements by some of these press journalists when they got the book. And keep in mind, this is the same Owaspy is out during this time. So you got Owaspy out during this time, and you got this book out during this time. So this is interesting. Antiquity unveiled. The conclusion arrives at in this book is that the Jesus of the Christians is a mythical character, chiefly based upon the life and deeds of Apollonius of Tyana. The statement, if true, is overwhelming. There is a fascinating interest in reading the multiplied testimonies of Apollonius, Damis, Platonus, Patamon, Joseph, and others. In the work will be found much to show that Christianity, like all other religious systems, sprang from some other religions existing before it. See that? Christianity is not a sudden burst of revelations upon the world. It is an evolution and grew out of other decaying religious systems. See that? This is the shit that many people been breaking out throughout the years, that Christianity is an amalgamated religion. We showed you that throughout the years, dropping videos on the Owaspy, showing you how Lou Among and them boys inspired from the time of the Egyptians to the Chaldeans, the Mesopotamians, to the Jews, to the Ptolemies, to the Romans. One deity. So this is some more information. Now they're going to Apollyon. Now, that's, like I said, it's the picture of Apollonius of Tyana. White boy. Huh? Or he could have been copper color. Who's to say? But nonetheless, he was a mystic regardless of his nationality. Regardless of his nationality. This is Apollonius of Tyana, the Nazarene. Huh? Niggas ain't trying to hear that. Look at this. Apollonius of Tyana, the Jesus of Nazareth, St. Paul, and John the Revelator of the Christian scriptures return to earth as a spirit and explains the mysteries that have concealed the theological deceptions of the Christian hierarchies. Ooh, nigga, let's take a break on this one. We about to read this. We about to get into that one. Let me burn that little thing. Let me burn that little thing still first, yes? Give me a one in the chat if you get this understanding. We going through Antiquities Unveiled right now, showing you how the people of the first century coming on up, they're coming in spirit to reveal what took place in the first century. So if you want to know what took place in the first century, get Antiquities Unveiled, because the niggas who lived during that time is the one who is revealing what we're reading. You dig? Yes, family, we're about to go into this. This is interesting, man. I read this book years ago, and I was like, yo, this book is a monster. You know what I mean? We're going to go into it. Let me take a sip of some mineral water. So we're going to go into this joint, right? So check this. Shit going to blow your mind, son. So now, before entering, pull this shit up so I can see. This shit kind of, I got to excuse me, this shit kind of cluttered. Before entering upon this all-absorbing subject, it is simply proper, by way of explanation, to inform the reader that previous to the date given below, Mr. Roberts had been having regular weekly sittings with the mediums through whom these communications were received. See that? This is another John Newbro family. But in reference to the sitting on May 25th, 1881, look at the date, family. Look at that date. When the Owaspy was compiled, okay. This is during, now keep in mind, this is the 33 years after the This is 33 years after the birth of Cosmon. And what took place 33 years after? Let's get that right before we head on. You know, I like precept upon precept here, a little, there, a little. So let's go to the Owaspy. Let's go to Owaspy Prelude. Let's go ahead. What it states right here. What it states right here. 33 years, this is 1881. 1881, that this verse is referring to. In the 33rd year, 1881, in the 33rd year of the angels descended, the ambassadors of the angel hosts of heaven, in the name of Jehovah, revealed to man his heavenly kingdoms through his Owaspy, making known the plans of his delightful creation for the resurrection of the people of the earth. But notice it's stated here, specifically, in the 33rd year of the angel descended, the ambassadors of the angel hosts of heaven. Just that alone, that part we're dealing with. So in 1881, there was a burst of angels upon the scene. And the proof is these mediums during this time that was able to communicate with these angels to get these revelations. So these ambassadors of Jehovah that came, some of these is revealed in the Antiquities unveiled, because it's the same time. I stated what? But in reference to the sitting on May 25th, 1881. So this is the same time that the Owaspy is referring to when we're talking about 33 years after the birth of Cosmon. So now we're going to start from Mr. Roberts right here. Mr. Roberts records in his notes the following. Now he's talking about his experience with the medium. Having been informed who would next manifest through the medium, the time having arrived, I felt a thrill of astonishment and a delight of the greatest intensity. And the very air of the humble apartment in which we sat seemed filled with the mighty spiritual power, as the name of Apollonius of Tyana was announced. And we were greeted for the first time by the great Cappadonian sage and philosopher, as well as the greatest teacher and benefactor that ever drew to himself the love, admiration, and reverence of the civil world, Apollonius, the spirit-anointed Mashiach of the Orient. His communication was as follows. Now here's the spirit talking. It's Apollonius of Tyana. Let our salutations be the survival of truth and its conquest of superstition. I was born according to the Christian calendar on the 16th day of February 2nd. There go your birthday of Jesus Christ. The nigga gave you the day he was born. He like, yo, I was born February 2nd. February 16th. AD 2. Of wealthy parents, was educated until my 26th year in general philosophy and literature. When I served for 6 years under Exenus of Heraclea, learning the Pythagorean philosophy. After acquiring all I could learn from the teaching of that philosopher, I went to Antioch and from there to Jerusalem. So he's showing you the places he went to be educated. On account of some wonderful physical manifestations of spirit power taking place through my then young mediumship, which persons living in Jerusalem had heard of, my entrance to that city was hailed, as it had been alleged the entrance of Jesus of Nazareth was hailed. See that? See that? Apollonius of Tyana is telling you himself in spirit, nigga, that was me. With hosannas and songs of praise to one who came in the name of the Lord. And now, mark particularly what I say. This took place when I was 33 years of age. See that? This Apollonius of Tyana revealing his story, where they got it from. Now you have Jesus Christ. I want you to pay the closest attention to what I say here set forth. You will, by examining Josephus' work, War of the Jews, see that concerning the siege of Jerusalem, a certain prophecy was given, or words were spoken, as is alleged by Jesus of Nazareth, which were fulfilled. You will find what I refer to in Matthew chapter 23 and 35, verse 35, where the so-called Jesus is made to have asserted that generations were guilty of all the blood that had been shed from Abel to Zacharias, the son of Barak, slain between the temple and the altar exactly 34 years after the alleged death of Jesus. And you will find this prophecy then fulfilled, while Jesus is made to have said that it was fulfilled in his time. And here you have an example of the unauthenticity of the Christian gospel. See that? All this I learned at the very time at which Flavius Josephus wrote the history of the War of the Jews. For I was employed and used by the Emperor Vespasian as his oracle, when in the same state as this medium is. Who now sits before you? So I remember Mally reading earlier when they were trying to say Josephus was trying to put Vespasian as a Messiah, not knowing it was goddamn Apollonius of Tyana the whole time, because if Vespasian was using him as his oracle, Vespasian was probably taking the credit. And Josephus was probably looking at him like the Messiah when it was Apollonius of Tyana the whole time. Ain't that, son? Backdrop. Never during my mortal life did I desire to be worshipped after death. Never did I, as a mortal man, teach such a doctrine. But I was defied after my death. 9 epistles were made a present to me by Phratus of Taxila, India, or rather between Babylon and India, who was a satrap in those days. Those epistles contain all that is embraced in the present epistles claimed to have been written by St. Paul. Ooh-wee-wee, ooh-wee-wee. And from which I have learned as a spirit, I concluded that I am both the Jesus and St. Paul of the Christian scriptures. Ooh-wee-wee, flattering enough to my vanity, but the ruin of my happiness. It is my duty here to confess all I can, bring to recollection in order that spiritual darkness may disperse and the light of truth shine in. Look at that. Look at that. There is one thing that I desire particularly to speak of, and that is the ultimate of spirit power on earth. All materialists claim that it is impossible to restore that which is dead to life. Upon this point, upon my own knowledge, I assert that if you have developed your mortal body to that extent, not into what is called moral purity, but into a holy, trusting love with the heart that beats for humanity, if such a person can come in contact with the fresh, young body from which the spirit has been driven out before it could accomplish its mission, take that body by the hand, and with the mighty will arrest that spirit. He can force it back to the body it once inhabited and make it fulfill its mission. 3 things are necessary to do this. First, a perfectly healthy organism. That does not imply a strong, powerful one. It means an organism in which the spirit is greater than the body. The excess of spirit producing this result. Here the controlling spirit caused the form of the medium to rise. You hear this? Here the controlling spirit caused the form of the medium to rise, and extending his arms at full length to the right and left, said, the spirit addressing, but hold on, let me pause right there. Because you remember when I told y'all I see my homeboy levitate, That's exactly what he did. He extended his arms left and right like a cross. You remember that. If you go back and watch that video, I actually stood up and showed me doing this like how he did. You want to hit this? So look what it states again. Here, the controlling spirit caused the form of the medium to rise, so he levitated and extended his arms at full length to right and left. Because you remember when I told you my man levitated, and when he levitated, he formed a cross. He spread his hands out like a cross. Now here, Antiquities Unveiled is demonstrating the exact same thing. The spirit, Apollonius of Tyana, is lifting Robert, the medium, and the medium, Robert, is extending his hands like a cross. And what it states, the spirit addressing you is not confined to the limits of the form you see before you. It is not only fills the physical organism you see, but extends far around it as well. In the time when I lived in the mortal form, the old was dying out and the new began, the new being born. By this, I mean that superstitions, gods, and all such ideas were on the wane, and man was seeking, as he is today, for something more practical and beneficial. It is not through any qualities that I possess different from or superior to those of any other man that I accomplished what I did, but through the spiritual power within and within me. The fact I want to have especially marked the highest sensitive mortals living in any age or generation, and who are living the nearest in accord with nature's divine law of truth, will bring forth a child who may be the so-called savior of that generation. Those men and women who utter the highest and most beneficial truth to their fellow mortals are the saviors of their time. You see that? Look what it stated about the diet, though. I mean, the purity level. It stated what? The highest sensitive mortals living in any age or generation, and who are living the nearest in accordance with nature's law. Nature's divine law of truth will bring forth a child who may be so called the savior of that generation. So based off your purity of diet, you could bring forth the Mashiach of your generation. Based off following natural law. Further, I have this to say. I retired voluntarily, for I was neither, abstraced, nor banished from anything I had done, said, or written, to the same island to which, as alleged, St. John of Revelations went. In the year 6970 AD. I therefore wrote what occurred through me in a trance state, abracadabra, not knowing what I wrote. What that sound like, family? Ain't that some John Newbro shit? What'd he say? He says, I there wrote what occurred through me in a trance, not knowing what I wrote. If you notice, this is a consistent, similar system of spirit communion where the medium is writing things he's not told or not aware that he's writing until later. An almost identical story with that attribute to the so-called St. John the Revelator. That story was nothing more than an attempt of the spirit world to give the truth of the spirit life through a mortal organism. In a day and a generation that was not ripe to receive it. That is, the medium chosen for the expression of the teachings of spirits was too much imbued with the mysticism of Judea and neighboring countries to be well suited for that purpose. What is known to you moderns as the Nicene Library contain documents, some of which are still extant, that fully warrant you in challenging the translators of today as to the correctness of their production. Let them examine, if they dare, the manuscripts referred to, and they will find what is now being published erroneously in many particulars. They have followed too much what their ancestors translated without having translated for themselves. See that? See that? Y'all just following the Bible and not upgrading a bit. You got to upgrade this shit. Now, here, I declare that the Christian Gospels were all preached by me, preached at Jerusalem, preached at Ephesus, preached at Athens, preached at Philip, preached at Rome, preached at Antioch, preached at Alexandria, preached at Babylon. This is Apollonius of Tyana. This one nigga doing all this, but they attributed his works to Paul. In all those countries I preached, and by manipulation and certain qualities developed in me, I healed the sick, restored the sight of the blind, and in the way therein set forth, even raised the dead. I will try to make this raising of the dead plainer, because he know, like, oh, you raising the dead. Come on now. If a child, a youth, or a maiden whose body is fresh, full of vigor and perfection, and whose spirit has become detached from it, in that case, I hold that one whose power is great and whose will is indomitable. While that body is yet warm, I remember reading this back in the day too. While that body is yet warm, can cause the spirit to return and continue to inhabit that organism. In this way, I know the dead can be restored to life. When I lived on earth, all the philosophers who taught men to expect redemption according to more ancient authorities taught that such redemption was to happen at that time. From what I have been able to learn as a spirit, when I was the person who was designed by spirit to fulfill that mission. I claim no preeminence over anyone. I only say that my mortal body contained more spirit than the average of men, or even the most highly developed among them at the time I existed in mortal flesh. My history, as it has come down to you moderns, written by one Damis and by others afterward in regard to the main incidents of my life is correct, but in regard to the glamour, romance, and mystery of the narrative, it has no relation to me whatsoever. The later was the work of my disciples and followers after my death, and was promulgated by them. One thing more, and I am through with my communication. It is this: almost every picture that in modern times is recognized as the likeness of Jesus is identical portrait of Apollonius of Tyana, painted in the reign of Vespasian. Vespasian, how do you pronounce that nigga name? That emperor consulted me. Huh? I was the oracle in his camp. I was the means of saving the life of Flavius Josephus. We here asked him how it came that Josephus had made no mention of that fact in his Jewish wars. He replied, the Jewish hierarchy of that day had a horror and a dislike of even their best friends who were not of their faith. And Josephus, being a Pharisee, a Pharisee of the straightest sect, was even more than usually prejudiced against a Gentile like myself. By this, I do not mean that the Pharisees were bad people, but that they were so devoted to their religion as to be bitterly bigots and prejudiced against those who differ from them. And you see that today with these Israelite camps. Ain't no different. A white boy come bring you the truth. You ain't trying to hear it. White boy bought you niggas a waspy. I ain't trying to hear it. Apollonius of Tyana, y'all niggas took his story, a Gentile, and made that shit to Jesus in the travel of Paul. Apollonius, it is my opinion from all I can learn as a spirit that all the Christian gospels are borrowed from, and in fact, that their origin was the books that I brought from India. Obtained in the part from Parates, who was king of Taxila. I think those books were used by the Platonians, what's that? Electus and Gnostics of Alexandria. About 150 years after, I died in the year 99 AD at Ephesus, and was 97 or 98 years of age, although some have enlarged the period of my earthly life to 150 years. The originals of the four Gospels I obtained through one Hiram Ermindai of Taxila, who took me forward into further India. They were written in the characters not unlike those used by the Chinese, on thin, tough paper. They were treated of the four stages of life of Buddha: the first to his incarnation and birth, the second to his childhood and youth, the third to his mature life, and fourth to his old age and death. These books I obtained at Singapore, at the extreme point of India, on the strait between India and Sumatra. We here mention to him the fact that 1 week before we had received a communication from a spirit purporting to be Olaflus, the Christian bishop of the Goths, who said he had translated from Samaritan manuscripts the epistles and gospels to which he, Apollonius, had referred into the Gothic tongue. In that manuscript that he translated were the writings of himself after the originals who obtained at Singapore, India, to which he replied. See that? Your goddamn New Testament, them four Gospels just come out of India. One Hegapus made copies from my translations and modified versions of the originals in the Samaritan tongue, and Uphilus copied from the manuscripts of Hegesippus I wrote in the Hebraic Sumerian tongue, which was the language of my country. See that? Now you've seen how the shit came from India and how it came into the Hebrew tongue. They're telling you how it happened. Here, the control of the medium became wholly exhausted, binding us a hasty and most benign adieu. He left the medium more exhausted than we had ever seen him at any previous sitting. No other control of the medium was possible, and thus ended a spirit interview. So as Apollonius of Tyana drew this nigga out, because even in the Owaspy, when we read the other day that when the angels laid hands on their mortal ward, that they drew energy, they got stronger. So that will drain the mortal ward, and here's proof of what's going on with the spirit draining and exhausting the mortal medium. No other control of the medium was possible, and thus ended a spirit interview, which is destined to mark an era in human progress, never transcended, if ever equaled, in importance and in interest to all classes of the human race. He said, we publish such facts as are conceded by ample authority to be historically established concerning Apollonius. There is much that it would be desirable to add as the result of our own research, but we will confine ourselves mainly to the current history of his life and labor. As the best condensed sketch of the life of Apollonius that we have been able to find, we have chosen that of the Penny Cyclopedia, London, 1834. We feel that we may safely assume as true and proven. The following historical statements concerning Apollonius: he was born of wealthy parents at Tyana in Cappadocia, at the very period when it is alleged the Christian Jesus was born in Bethlehem. At the age of 12 years, he was sent to Tyrus in Cilia, the alleged birthplace and home of St. Paul, not linking the frivolous habits of the people of that city. With his father's consent, he retired to Aegea, a town a short distance from Tyrus, where he remained until after attaining to man's estate. There he studied every system of philosophy and perfected himself in heretic and general literature. There he took up his residence in the temple of Exclusulus, how do you pronounce that? So famed, so famed, so famed for its miracles, cures, was initiated by the priests of that temple in their mysteries. See that he was learning. He went to go get initiated in the mystery school. So whoever was running the mystery schools knew what he knew. He was taught that. So it's like shit. If we looking at Apollonius of Tyana as the man, we need to go to the mystery school and see what else they got popping in. So famed for its miraculous cures. Hold on. Let me put my battery in. All right, so miraculous cures, where we at, was initiated by the priests that temple in their mysteries and performed cures that astonished not only the people, but even those masters of the art of healing. He there finally decided to adopt the philosophy of Pythagoras and vigorously observe the trying discipline instituted by the Samaean sage. He performed the terrible task of 5 years silence, which he endured cheerfully and without a murmur of complaint. He abstained from animal food. Okay. See? Y'all want to talk about reaching them higher planes? You got to let go of that flesh and blood. He abstained from animal food, wine, and woman, lived upon fruits and herbs, dressed only in linen garments of the plainest construct, went barefooted and with uncovered head, and wore his hair and beard uncut. The man probably was a Nazi. He was especially distinguished from his beauty, his genial beards, his uniform love and kindness, and his imperturbable goddamn equanimity of temper. In these respects, he was the personal embodiment of the imaginary traits of the Christian Jesus, and was in no doubt the original of the picture of the so-called Nazarene, now so venerated by uniform professors of the Christian religion, determined to devote himself to the pursuit of knowledge and the teachings of philosophy. He gave away his large patrimony to his poor relatives and went to Antioch, then a centered of learning, but little less noted than Athens or Alexandria. There he began his great mission by teaching philosophy to a number of disciples and to the people. He entered the temple of Apollo. What's that? These letters be mixed up, kind of messed up. But he entered the temple of Apollo at Antioch and learned the mysteries of its priesthood. Philostratus described the style of speaking adopted by Apollonius. Thus, Apollonius used a style of speaking not elevated nor swollen in the language of poetry, nor yet one to refine, nor to attack. For whatever exceeded the attack with that mediocrity was considered by him desolate and unpleasant. I'm gonna refine some of these words over here. He made use of no fastidious, nicety in the division of his discourses, nor any fine spun Christian religion, by drawing the character of a man of great knowledge, sanctity, and miraculous power. Therefore he formed Apollonius after the example of Christ, and accommodated many things in history of our Lord to Apollonius. See that? Apollonius was that man. Thus we see that very learned and poised Christians, who was forced to admit the common identity of Apollonius and Jesus. The first described by Philostratus according to the memorums of Damas, made in the 1st century, and the later described by no one knows whom or when, but certainly not earlier than the beginning of the 3rd century of the so-called Christian era, and now contained in what is called the New Testament, as Christian writings have been forced to admit the identity of the respective narrative concerning Apollonius and Jesus. The only question that remains to be settled is, which was the original author of the so-called Christian teachings? If this was not already been fully done, there remains very little yet to be done to complete the demonstration that Apollonius of Tyana was that author, and not Jesus of Nazareth, nor Paul of Tyrus, and is wrongly claimed by Christian writers after stating many reasons for this conclusion. Dr. Lardner, than whom there is no higher Christian authority say. So let me finish. Let's see how much more we got. It is manifested, therefore, that Philostratus compared Apollonius and Pythagoras, but I did not see that he endeavored to make him a rival with Jesus Christ. Philostratus has never once mentioned our Savior or the Christians, his followers, neither in his long work nor in the lives of the Sophists. If it be his, as some learned men of the best judgment suppose, nor is there any hint that Apollonius anywhere in his wide travels met with any followers of Jesus. Huh? There is not so much an obscure of general descriptions of any men with by him whom any can suspect to be Christians of any denominations, either Catholic or heretic. Whereas I think if Philostratus had written with a mild adverse to Jesus, he would have laid hold on some occasion to describe and disparage his followers as enemies to the gods and containers of the mysteries and Solomonites, and different from all other men. Let it be remembered that Philostratus lived and wrote his life of Apollonius in the reign of Septimius Severus, about the beginning of the 3rd century AD. At that time, there could not possibly have been in existence any of the scriptures narrative and of the life of Jesus Christ, so nearly analogous to the incident and events which he related concerning Apollonius, had there been such person living as Jesus Christ, and his apostles. So the story of Apollonius of Tyana was hijacked. He's letting you know where the Gospels came from out of India. He's letting you know that his travels, that he traveled to these places that they attributed to Paul, was really him. Him coming into Jerusalem on a donkey on his 33rd year is Apollonius of Tyana. This shit is ugly. And their Christian followers during the time that Apollonius lived and labored throughout the then civilized world, Damis, who accompanied him during much of that time and who recorded everything worthy of especially note, would have made some mention of such people, either favorably or unfavorably. Like, nigga, you ain't even mentioned, period. Like, yo, them boys up the street, we don't really fuck with them niggas, so, at least they would have been mentioned unfavorably. They ain't mentioned them favorably or unfavorably. That he did not do so.
All
right. Is of itself sufficient proof that neither Jesus Christ, his apostles, nor the Christian religion had an existence either before or during that period, which was the only time in which they could have had a real existence. At all events, nothing can be more certain than the conclusion of Dr. Lardner that Philostratus did not write the life of Apollonius to disparage the Christian religion. But Dr. Lander is not content to make that fatal acknowledgement of the Christian plagiarism of the life and labors of Apollonius, but make an equally fatal acknowledgement in another direction, in disagreeing with Cudworth, Hewitt, and others as to the life of Apollonius by Philostratus, having been written to oppose Christianity, Dr. Lander say. So yeah, this thing is deep, dealing with Apollonius. You know what I mean? You see a lot is being exposed here. And so with due submission, I do not think that Apollonius was a man of so great importance as is here supposed. For it does not appear that any adversaries of the Christians, either Silius or Porphyry, how do you pronounce that, or any other before, what's that, Heraclius, at the beginning of the 4th century under, God damn it, these names are killing me, Diocletian. Persecution ever took any notice of him in any of their arguments, nor did I know that he has been once mentioned by any Christian writers of the first 2 centuries. When I first met with the observation of Cudworth, herein before given, I was very much surprised, considering the silence of all early antiquity. If this observation was right, I should have expected to find frequent mention of Apollonius in the history of St. John and other apostles of Christ, but there is none. We had in that space of time diverse learned men, some of them as eminent for extensive literature as any man that ever lived, as Justin, Tatian, Bardician, the Syrian, Clement of Alexandria, Irenaeus, Julius, Africanus, Tertullian, Minucus, Felix, not to insist on Clement of Rome, Ignatius of Polycarp, or the historians of them. Of all these, we have some remains. They lived in the first 2 centuries or the beginning of the 3rd, but Apollonius they have not taken the least notice. Very true, Dr. Lander and Lardner. And why didn't they not do so? That total silence of the part of those authors of the 1st and 2nd century regarding so eminent a philosopher and teacher as was Apollonius of Tyana can be accounted for upon but one theory, and that will show that it was a necessity to utterly ignore Apollonius and his philosophical and religious teachings in order that the Christian religion could gain a foothold to usurp up the fields he had so gradually occupied. See the politics? Them niggas ain't even mentioning. All them niggas was probably against Apollonius of Tyana. All the great philosophers. And we ain't even gonna mention this man. Of all authors named Dr. Lander, the complete works of none of them have come down to us. Besides, the fragmentary remains of the works of the first 3 centuries that have reached us have had to pass through the hands of Eusebian, Pope, Sylvester first, and their co-adaptors and successors, who from the beginning of the 4th century downward to the time when the art of printing ended, were so assiduously engaged in interpolating, mutilating, and destroying every trace of evidence within their reach. That shows the real origin and nature of the Christian religion. It should have struck the attention of Dr. Lardner with vastly greater force that nowhere in the books of the New Testament is there a single mention made of Apollonius. If we accept in a few verses of First Corinthians, where it says, "For while one saith, I am of Paul, and another, I am of Apollos, are ye not carnal? Who then is Paul, and who is Apollos? But ministers by whom ye believed, even as the Lord gave to every man. I have planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase." In a very ancient manuscript of this epistle found in a monastery of France by a Huguenot soldier called the Codex Beza. The name is not Apollos, but Apollonius. The Codex, you want to grab that right there, the Codex Beza. See what that's talking about. Boy, these words is goddamn trickery on here. Let's see what the Codex Beza talking about. Let me just stash that in the archives. Oh, okay, they do got the Codex Beza. Okay. We got here. I will come back to that, but all right. You know what I mean? Get some little gems out these joints. The name is not Apollos, but Apollonius. But even this positive clue to identify of Apollonius with St. Paul of the Christians was attempted to be obliterated by substituting Apollos for Apollonius as it originally stood. This study, avoidance of all mention of Apollonius in the Christian scriptures, is positive proof that his recognition in any way whatsoever by the authorities of Christianity would be fatal to their scheme of deception and fraud. See that? We wonder they had not had the cunning to obliterate that one reference to the preaching and teaching of Apollonius and the admission that his teaching was in perfect accord with the teachings attributed to St. Paul. It is an old saying that liars should have good memories. This was never more apparent than in the oversight of the not eliminating that telltale confession from the first epistle to the Corinthians. There it stands, and there it will stand, thanks to the art of printing, to confound these Christians, enemies of truth, and make clear the fraud they're upholding. Dr. Lander further says. So, as you see, it's a lot going on with the Apollonius of Tyana. The politics, they try to cover this man's history up. See that? And this is Apollonius of Tyana. This is the white boy we talking about. That's the whitey we talking about. Making noise in these different indigenous regions. So we just read a little bit of Apollonius of Tyana. Give me a one in the chat if you get this understanding. You know how we do. So Apollonius of Tyana. You ain't heard about him, now you know. A lot of shit that was attributed to Jesus Christ, attributed to Paul, it's attributed to this man. It's a blood clot vibes. Yes, family. So this is definitely an interesting read, yeah? Antiquities Unveiled. Definitely an interesting read. Definitely an interesting read. They got a lot of goddamn first century wordings. See y'all chopping in. Yes, family. That means he was a severe teacher. Just going back through checking out the comments. Interesting. Wild thing is the Nazarene Gospels and the same literature makes their boast of India. Look at that. See that? And now we're getting more insight from Antiquities Unveiled about the journey to India, who he spoke to, who he got it from. That nigga went over there, conjured up and spoke to the deity. Boom, niggas writing. Writing and they ain't know what they writing. Apollonius of Tyana is describing the same things that is attributed to Jesus, Paul, John Newbro with automatic writing. All these things taking place in Antiquity, yo. Nothing new under the table, yes? Oh, big facts, yara. Definitely a head buster. Definitely a head buster. My brother. What it do, King?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Loud and clear. Peace, beloved.
Yeah. Man, peace to the God, boy. You over here dropping
God, man. So what you think about that right there, man?
Hey, bro, you done went nuclear today, boy.
Yeah, man.
You drop some nuclear bombs.
It's crazy because, you know what I mean? I've been knowing about this book for a minute, but I was like, you know what? Let me actually touch on it. Let me just speak on a little bit of it. And I just, Apollonius of Tyana was up in the air. So I just like, you know what? Let me just speak on some of the book. And then it's interesting what was being, because I read this book some years ago, but just coming back to it now and reliving it, it's like, oh, snap. And then what you brought out today, it was like, nigga, oh, man. So it's all kind of gluing in a sense, dealing with that first century time period with all the forgery, the deceptions from the Christian church, and you know, things of that nature.
Yeah, fine, bro. Yeah, that was serious right there. I hurried up and when it got the PDF and added it to the drive, Google Drive. I said, oh,
yeah, that's a cold blooded one right there, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. You and Pam gonna enjoy that one. I ain't gonna hold you.
Yeah, the history though, man, like and what I'm seeing happening, the worship of every man, every savior, every god is being exposed and obliterated in this age of Cosmine, bro. You know what I mean? Like it's going deep. Like if you really get into like any of the deep dive of history, going back to like the first century and all that, bro, you see it's clear that it was a strong literary team involved. It was politics involved. It was money involved. Right. It was Christianity was formed as a weapon of Rome to subjugate it. You know what I mean? People. That's what it was about, bro. You know
Yo,
what I
your
mean?
live,
So,
that what you brought on your live, and I was watching it today. I was like, God damn, you dissected that shit to the nothingness. I was like,
yeah,
God damn. You
hey
proved that
man,
Paul was an Edomite. He's a Herodian.
yeah, your boy Paul is a op. He's a
That's
Herodian.
not even up to debate no more. When you showed that family tree and made the connection, I was like, God damn, this is wild.
Yeah, yeah. And then look, he made it. He said it himself. He said, "Salute Herod or the Herodian, my kinsman." When you
Right,
look kinsman, up, right, it's a blood relative.
right.
We go into the older versions, it's straight say relative. And then the key is he had Roman citizenship. He had
Mm,
Roman citizenship. So what Israelite or claiming to be an Israelite had Roman citizenship? You
right.
feel me? Now, if you were a descendant of Antipater, whose son you all know is Herod the Great, if you are a descendant of him, you got automatic Roman citizenship because he saved Julius Caesar in Alexandria. So he
Mm,
rewarded him and his entire lineage as Roman citizens. So that mean your pedigree had to be on record with the Senate in Rome, boy.
mm.
It had to
That's
be
it.
on record. And
That's
that's
it.
why that's why Herod could not be tried in Jerusalem. That's why Paul could not be tried in Jerusalem. Because it's unlawful for a Roman citizen to be executed and tried by a foreign court.
Mm.
You see?
That's goddamn bad drop.
Yeah, that's bag drop right there, bro. So I went and got that PDF you just put up, bro. I'm looking through the table of contents. I say, good night, bro. Even Vespasian, right? Like we talking about Vespasian, Josephus, and it's a famous rabbi named Yohanan Bar Kai or something like that. Both
Mhm,
these niggas, bro.
mhm.
Both these niggas told this nigga Vespasian that he fulfilled the messianic prophecy in Numbers 24:18 to say they is.
Boy,
You
what
know
the
what I
niggas was
mean?
drinking on. But it's crazy because when I heard you bring that up, because you said they were trying to make it back to a Messiah, something like that, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So when
yeah.
I read Vesapian that he used Apollonius of Tyana as an oracle, and you know, the kings probably took credit for what niggas was doing or whatever the case may have been. But I just found that connection interesting that this nigga was tied in with Apollonius of Tyana. He was his oracle. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, fuck, really going on here?
yeah. It's getting exposed on a major level, bro.
Yeah.
And then I be hearing the brother, what is it? Right here. Let me show y'all. This right here, I don't know if y'all can see that right there. It's called Creating Christianity,
Mm.
a
A
weapon of
weapon of
ancient
ancient
Rome
Rome. We.
by Henry Davis. All right. I advise everybody that if you trying to dive real deep into it, go get this. All right. Shout out to Pam too. My sister Pam, Awakening to the True Ministry. She sent me a PDF, True Authorship of the New Testament. And guess what? In there is linking right up with what I'm reading here.
Oh, you talking
All
about the
right.
goddamn the Peace of Roman family? Yeah, I was up on them some years
Yeah.
back too. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
let's say right here, it say sympathetically reveals how the Roman and Jewish aristocracies created the most famous story of all time.
Mm,
You know what I mean? So Rome is responsible for rabbinical Judaism and Christianity.
mm,
Rome is responsible for it. You know what I mean? Because once Jerusalem fell, if you go back there, once Jerusalem fell and the dust settled, all the Israelite literature is coming from overseas in a foreign language.
mm.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So if everything being composed after the fall of Jerusalem, then who the hell is writing this stuff?
Exactly. That's a good one. Facts.
Yeah,
Because if
yeah.
niggas is running in the goddamn Africa or wherever the case they may be going, who writing that literature? Or who's telling the story?
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? So you can tell it's a tool, and when you start digging a little deeper, you can be like, dang. So look, the back of it say right here, it say a profound and controversial investigation of a complex theme, the war that led to the fall of Jerusalem and the creation of the Christian religion, the religious and political battle between the people of Judea and the Jewish and Roman aristocracies is presented in an unconventional narrative, which investigates ancient evidence, quotes from the work of respected authorities on the subject, and states controversial opinions openly. Its
Mm,
main conclusion is that the New Testament was created by a powerful senatorial family called the Calpurnius Pisos,
Yeah.
who had the full support, of their relatives, the Herodian royal family.
You see that,
Ball
right?
game.
Backdrop.
Ball game.
And not only that, they were saying in that the authors of the New Testament, they were saying that Flavius Josephus was Arius. I don't know if you came to that
Yeah.
part of the book yet. You see what I'm saying?
Hey man. Hey, there's a lot of pseudo-anonymous stuff being brought out. Like famous men, they'll write something 200 years after a man died and put his name on it. You
Right.
dig? And then 2,000 years later arguing if Peter wrote this, or
Right.
James wrote this, or Paul wrote this. Man, it just told you a powerful senatorial family behind the whole thing. It's like,
God
bro,
damn.
what are you talking about? Bag drop.
Exactly. So looking at all these Israelites like Zabak. I like Brother Zabak, but he defends Paul to the utmost. I done seen that nigga like rinse the street with Paul scriptures at times. Like, we're not a hit this. I would like to see like, yo, what these cats, how they gonna rebuttal this?
Nah, it ain't no rebuttal. They gonna stay away from me because I know where they going to defend Paul. You know what I mean? And being that Paul is a double-minded man in his writings, you got scriptures that the Christians stick with, where he's saying you ain't justified by the works of the law, but by faith and grace. Then you got scriptures that the Messianic brood stick with. I believe everything written in the law and the Torah, but you're not realizing he's a conflicted man. He's double-minded. You know what I mean? Well, he's saying things that are cater or bring him convenience to a situation. So when he said, I believe all things written in the law and the prophets, that nigga was in court trying to defend himself. You see? So then he had to like, I believe the Torah. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah,
you went deep on that, bro. It's like, god damn. I'm like, niggas ain't doing that, man. Niggas ain't doing their homework like that, bro.
No, they're not gonna deal with the fact. Like Bruce is gonna stick with the fact that he say he a Benjamite, but they not gonna go to the part where he say, salute Herodian, my kinsman. Like, you never gonna dig into that. You never ask yourself, okay, well, how the hell does he the only Israelite with Roman citizenship? How the hell does this work out? Like, don't none of the apostles got citizenship? I mean, if anybody should have had citizenship, Jesus, my nigga should have had citizenship. This nigga killing centurions and all types of stuff. You know what I mean?
So when it mentions that Paul is a Benjamite, that's the only verse to say that? There's nothing else to go with that?
Yeah, it's like 3 times in there. He tell you he got a seed of Abraham. He an Israelite and all that.
But he didn't prove his lineage, though, did he?
Nah.
See, that's where you kill him at, because you showed the lineage as a nigga being a goddamn Edomite.
Yeah.
You showed the family tree. When I see the family tree, it's like, nigga, what else is there to talk about? When I see that family tree, I'm like, nigga, what else is there to talk about?
Hey, you know what they saying now? They saying, oh, that's a different Saul. You feel me? But see, once you start bringing out what Josephus is writing, even though he problematic too, right? But see, Josephus is writing around the time of the fall of Jerusalem. The Gospels are purportedly dealing with 30 years early, 40 years earlier. And see, what the scholars are saying is this: the Gospels are backdated. It's Josephus, what he wrote in his Antiquity of the Jews and the War of the Jews. The gospel writers used that, in which Josephus was in them, used that and it's backdated as if it went down 30 or 40 years earlier. You know what I mean? That's why you see all them cats running around, and right when the Jerusalem's in the fall, you got Bernice in there, you got Paul, you got Agrippa, you got Simon, who is Simon Peter, you got John the Baptist, you got James the brother, you got all these cats around in the 60s, not in the 30s. You feel me? But it's the same thing that you pick up and read in the New Testament. Bro, they even got Nero's secretary in the Bible, Epaphroditus. Paul's book. I'm like, how the hell is this nigga write this? Nero's secretary. Crazy, man.
That's some deep shit, bro. That's some deep shit. You know what I mean? And it's crazy because it's like, you know, like Lou Among would have had a lot to do with that shit. as far as the hierarchies and the angelical side between Lou Monk, Jabril, and them boys, because there was high dealings in that area. Even Baal was up in there around the time. I'm just looking at the prominent deities within the regions of Jerusalem and Rome who would have been prominent around that time. And now I find Lou Monk, Jabril, and Baal.
Wow,
so that's interesting.
That's interesting. That's amazing. But you know what I found out that was powerful? What you was reading. He said that he never desired to be worshipped, man.
Right.
You feel me? I'm seeing that even with all the great men in the Owaspy that was from different nations that had the light of the Creator on them, all of them was saying the same thing too. Don't worship me, I am a man.
Right, exactly. And the interesting thing about the Apollonius of Tyana is when he broke down rising the dead. It's like as long as the body is still warm, he could draw the spirit back in. And I'm just like, damn, it's like these niggas is dealing with high spiritual science. You know what I mean? On a level where it's like we still scratching our head like, nigga, that's impossible to do some shit like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But that's hard though, how that's over in India. And we know you did over in India, you dealing with the Buddhists, you dealing with the Brahmins and all that. Even the Nazarene Acts talk about how the brothers in them, James and all them, they went to India and checked in with the spiritual systems over that way. You see, so it makes
saying facts.
Yeah. So they was high in the science, and then when he said what you was reading when Apollonius of Tyana was saying that the Essenes, he was like, it was never no Christians, it was the Essenes. Bro, like we right on this right path. You know what I mean? I was like, wow, this is crazy.
Like, yo, the Essenes is goddamn good in every goddamn area of fashion. We find the Essenes mentioned, them niggas is in the good. You know what I mean? But if you notice,
everybody talk about them.
Right. Yeah. And if you notice, he went there to learn.
Yeah.
He went there to learn. Yahshua was an Essene. So this is really interesting because who's to say that nigga ain't went there and learned around the time Yahshua was there?
Yeah, exactly.
But although it don't mention it, but it's still like we know Yahshua is an Essene, and he came among the Essenes to learn something.
Yeah, absolutely. That's your whole reason for going to travel and deal with those on a high level. To go deal with the priest and then deal with those. And I find it very ironic that the Qumran community or the Essenes, they were so about what they was about. You had to kill them niggas. You understand? Like so, rabbinical Judaism survived. That because they sold out. You feel me?
Right.
The real ones was like, nah, we rocking this purity. You understand? Right. Nigga, either the angel ambassador's gonna ride for us or we gonna die. Nigga, we ain't selling out for nothing.
And that's what you brought out basically when you was talking about with the Maccabees, when they had they kettle, but they ate the herbs still.
Yeah.
You was bringing that out.
Yes, during the Feast of Dedication. Right. You dig? And they was priests, so if they wasn't even chewing on the flesh, being priests who know the sacrificial rituals, but the temple was defiled, so they like, nah, we'll be defiled if we ate something like that. So yeah, man, like it's all there, brothers, to slow down and just connect the dots.
You know are those the same ones who committed suicide at Masada?
See, you got your different factions of them, and one thing I realized is this too, that all of them wasn't in agreement either. They was on agreement when it came down to doing righteous works unto your neighbors, none but the Creator, spiritual communion, not chewing on the back of animals and none of that. They was in agreement with that. You know what I mean? But you know, you had different Essenes. You had your Mount Carmel Essenes, you had your Nazarene Essenes, you had your Sakari Essenes, the revolutionary brothers that have put that blade on.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they was in no way, shape, form, or fashion down with the Romans, and the Sakari Essenes are the ones that died at Masada.
Okay.
They was the ones like, look, we'll kill ourselves or we let our bodies fall into the hands of these unclean men.
Facts.
You see what I'm saying? That's how like zealous these brothers were.
Facts.
Right? They really considered their bodies a temple to the Creator, to where they wouldn't even allow themselves to be captured alive by unclean men.
Mm-hmm. That's
You
real
know
though.
what I mean? Yeah, yeah. But you see, the rabbinical Judaism is what survived because they the ones that went out there and told Vespasian, "Oh, you Messiah, you are messianic figure." Josephus did the same thing. You dig? So they were allowed to move the Sanhedrin from Jerusalem to Rome. Y'all can
Now,
have peaceful lives and all that.
do you think these were Edomite Jews? Because like in the first century, you had the mixture of, at that time, I'm sure it wasn't just the pure Mosaic time Judeans. You know what I mean? It's probably more like a mixed breed of Jews claiming to be Jews at the time. So, what do you think?
That's what it was.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's what it was. See, with the appointment of Herod by the Roman Senate in 40 BCE as king of Judea, you did, anybody that came against Herod, he will remove them from their office and install who he wanted, particularly his own. You feel me? So by the time Yahshua and all them on the scene, when he telling the Pharisees and the Sadducees and them, you of your father the devil. You did. Well, it's really because there was no pure priesthood then. The last pure priest died with the Hasmonean dynasty, the Maccabees. So the priesthood was mingled. The king was a foreigner. The Sanhedrin, which is the Supreme Court, all that was mingled with Herodian blood, bro. All of it.
Even the Pharisees?
Yeah, Pharisees too. Yeah, too. You know what I mean? So it ain't saying everyone.
Is it fair to say that? Is it fair to say that the Palestinian-looking people today that kind of look Arabish, is it fair to say that they was there during the first century, around that time?
Yeah. See, it's impossible to say. Well, no, they wasn't nowhere around. You know what I mean? Because if you look at where Esau is at, right in Jordan, and you look at over there in Jordan with the Bedouins, all right, you looking at you got the Palestinians right over there, not that far. You got, so all that was a mixture. Those, like I said, Jordan, Arabia, Edomites, all those were a mixture. And if you look at them today, you will mistake a lot of them for Arabs. You see what I'm saying? Like, I know today it's a consensus in Israel that the white man is Esau, but not saying there ain't no Edomites that are so-called Caucasian. I ain't saying that. What I'm saying is Esau is mixed among all the quote-unquote Arab peoples, because those type of peoples never left where they was at.
Right.
They never left where they was at. They've been there. So yeah, the Palestinians, you can call them Arabs. They can be mixtures of Arabs and Edomites or Jordanians, or so. Yeah, those people were definitely around though, bro. You know what I mean? That's why they fight so hard for that land, because they look at the people who call themselves Jews today as invaders, imposters.
Right, and we know the history about that. Right.
Yeah. Shit, you niggas came around in 1948. Outside of that, they had control of that deal for like 2,000 years.
Imagine that. That's interesting, though. That's interesting because the Israelites, claim to be Israelites, so we see ourselves back then as niggas in them regions. But then it could be kind of like how it is today, where you got the typical nigga on the street, the everyday working nigga, but then the hierarchies are these Europeans in control, law enforcement, the judges. Those would be the goddamn Pharisees and Sadducees of today. Different nationality, different customs and culture, but we the victims, the true Jews. Yeah. But then you got these apostate Jews who's sitting in office claiming to be, you know what I mean? So it's interesting to see if these same politics as today play out back then.
Yeah, bro. We hear what goes around comes around, or it tell you in certain writings that the greatest judgment is like a ring. You feel me? So it should be no surprise that what we see today is similar to what was going on back then.
Right.
You know what I mean? The sons of these Romans and Herodians are still on these streets. So there is a Herodian Roman connection that has been at war with you, has been at war with us. You know what I mean? And look, this war ain't just a physical war, propaganda. All right, the Romans were notorious for their propaganda. So in our day, in our time, you know, back in the civil rights era, we got J. Edgar Hoover with the COINTELPRO.
That's right.
Right. And then a couple years ago, we got the BIE, the Black Identity Extremists. You know what I mean? How they start classifying us and all that. So you seeing the children of these Romans and Herodians still at it with their intel, attacking us with their what? Propaganda.
Right.
And all that. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. Same thing.
Conspiracy. That's actual facts right there. Same conspiracy of old. So what's your take on you know what I mean? When the Judges chapter 20, when the house of Israel. I'm glad I got you. All right. Good. I gotta ask you this. Because I remember when I did my live on Judges 20, a verse came up, and I was like, yo, I gotta ask Melly on this one. And it was in the live too. All right, so in Judges 20, I don't know, I forget what chapter. I know it's chapter 20, verse 20. I forget, I don't want to say no anything, but I remember what it said, not line for line, but it stated something like the house of Israel, you know what I mean? Because, you know, they was beefing with the tribe of Benjamin or whatever. So the house of Israel went to consult at the house of God, right? And it stated they offered burnt offerings and peace offerings to the Lord. Now, my question is this. The house of Israel more likely is the northern tribe, right?
Right.
All right, so check it. The Leviticans are the only ones who can carry out the burnt offerings and sacrifice, right? Well,
supposed to be, absolutely.
All right, so Benjamin is kind of with Judah and Levi, right? If I'm not mistaken, in the south. So that would mean that them niggas would have to hold a truce for a minute, let the Levites run up there, do this quick little burnt offering, a peace offering, head down the south, and then start the war again. Because my thing is, who would have offered up the peace offering and the burnt offerings if only the priests of Levi could do that, and if they beefing with the niggas?
Yeah, hey, look, that's an excellent point. When you get in the 1 Kings 13, you start seeing that it's this cat named not Rehoboam, that was Solomon's son. What's the other boy name? Rehoboam. It's another cat. Jeroboam. Jeroboam is the other cat. All right, he was when the kingdom got split. All right, he became king. First king of the northern kingdom was Jeroboam.
Right,
okay?
right. Yep.
Now, what he realized was this: I ain't got no priests. Right? So he set up his own priesthood, right? Then started doing his own feast days and all that. And so he had those who weren't even ordained or sanctioned as priests performing the rites and the rituals. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, wait, nigga. That's enough to dive in right there, nigga. It's a wrap now. So how these niggas done, and that's how, I never heard the Israelites say that, but they split the priesthood then.
Yeah, they made their own priesthood up. So and necessarily, so even though Levi is rocking with the southern kingdom and all that, the northern tribe set up their own priesthood. They moved their capital to Samaria and not Jerusalem. They elected their own king and not a bloodline descendant of David and Solomon. They set up their own feast days. They set up their own images. You understand? And then they start going to war with the southern kingdom of Israel or the kingdom of Judah. So that's basically, that could have happened. They could have just had their own priests. You know what I mean?
Now that you say that, it makes sense. You done cleared it up now. It makes sense. It makes all the sense in the world now. But it's crazy because if that's the case, them niggas are breaking the goddamn Torah. Because in the Torah, it ain't say to do that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you niggas breaking the Torah and everything. But they been violating what they call that Torah, bro. The Torah being tampered with, compromised, false scribes, different interpretations. You dig? And the fact that they went to the God or a Lord in a temple and invoked his presence and asked his direction when it came to warfare and bloodshed, you dig? And the God responded, lets you know that is a false God, a false Lord that is not the creator or any angel ambassador of his. You know what I mean? It's a false God anyway.
Because when he had the opportunity to say, you know what, Israel, surrender your arms. I told you niggas thou shalt not murder. The niggas said, go up against them niggas in the morning. And when they went up against them, 18,000 of them niggas died, bro.
I know. Hey, boy, the God sent y'all out there, boy, with a hospital gown doctrine, boy, flanked all open.
The nigga said, bring your caskets, nigga. You niggas is dying today.
Right, so they go invoke. So let me know if I'm right. They went and invoked the God or the Lord, and he told them, yes, go to war. These niggas go to war and lose.
Them niggas went to war under the commandment of God, and 18,000 of them niggas. Now, this is the question. If 18,000 men fell in opposition to the God in whom you praise, which God allowed 18,000 to fall on the opposition, on the opposing force? Because whoever they worshiping got to be a greater God, because he just got a victory at 18,000.
Yeah. That may have been Ball and Astaroth. What you think? That may have been Ball and Astaroth at war or something.
Which time period we dealing with? This is during the Judges, right?
The Judges. So
You know
you
what?
around.
You right.
Yeah, because you around. Bang,
That
bang,
could have
bang.
been Ball and Astaroth. Yeah, that's during Ball reign. Because that's like 10th century BC, 9th century, 8th century, around them times. Yeah, that's around them times. Yeah, because Solomon and them boys like 9th century BC. 900, you know what I mean? Like 1,900 BC around them times. So that's definitely, and that's crazy because that's when Luamong and them boys started coming out. Not mentioned yet, but they was heavily on the scene spiritually, probably just in line somewhere, ain't saying nothing, they just being puppets, but you know what I mean? But definitely Baal and Ashtaroth, that's definitely, because there was a triangular war going on at that time, and it was Baal in Canaan, Ashtaroth in Mesopotamia, and Osiris in Egypt. And then the interesting part is that if you look at the wars between Baal and Ashtaroth when they took over Athens and Troy, it was like, yo, that nigga was like, yo, you gonna go this side, and I'm gonna encourage the people on this side, and we gonna bet. We gonna bet to see who kill off everybody. These niggas is betting on our fucking mortal lives.
The God playing us like puppets, man.
Fucking puppets, literally.
It's important to know the character of the creator. It's very important in this hour. It's very important because everybody can make their boast of having some type of spiritual encounter or spiritual I said encounter or spiritual situation. You got to be careful because a God, if you don't know the character of the creator, any type of angel or God or Lord could appear to you and say, look, prove your devotion to me. Like I told your forefathers, go over there and give me the foreskins of 200 of your enemies or something.
Or better yet, to sacrifice your child. Did you hear on Sinetta when he almost had these motherfuckers talking about they gonna leave their child for Jesus in the next room or some shit? I was like, God damn, boy, chess move on these niggas, man.
Yeah, they really ain't want to. Well, at least Nepta, she really ain't want to answer that. You know what I mean? But see, if she listening, I would let her know the reason why you feel like you caught up between a rock and a hard place is because you're trying to defend a false deity, a false God. The Creator would never have you kill your children because your children are His children. The Creator would never tell you to forsake your family to prove some type of makeshift devotion to Him. Right. You understand? Because your family has been put in charge of your character. You see what I'm saying? You're responsible for them. He'll never tell you to forsake them and leave them and prove your devotion to me and kill them or none of that. So the reason why any group I have a problem when we ask you flat out, if would you kill in the name of your God, specifically your children, or specifically a child, or specifically your spouse? If you get to stretching, yawning, and reaching, we know good well you are compromised by a false God. You see what I'm saying? Because the Creator would never command you to kill, nor any angel that's down with the Creator would ever command you to kill to prove your devotion. You see what I'm saying? And that's why she couldn't even handle when Sadat was bringing that out. The other cat got on her, he tried, but it was to no avail.
He like, hell yeah. Depending on what they do. Sadat said, they don't say no depending on what they do. It's that nigga, if you disobey, when you see, and I'm saying, and see, like you said, when you defending the law, you're gonna look silly defending a lie because you're defending this false God who got you in the cahoots now. You're looking silly.
Yeah. Yeah. When he asked him about where it said what Jesus said in there, if you hate not your father or your mother, or your brother, you know what I mean? So and he basically was trying to ask her, like, all right, well, would you hate your family to prove your love to God? Right? Would you hate your family? Now, everybody that ever read it, you know what I mean? Anybody that ever read any of that, regardless if you had a way to explain it to make it seem as if it don't mean what it says, you know deep down you had a problem with it when you first read it. Hold on, something wrong with it.
Right.
What you mean hate my family? Hate so-and-so. And then when you could do the history of the Messiah's movement, you'll see it was all about family.
Exactly.
James and that was his family. What you mean?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? John the Baptist was his straight family. It's all about family. There ain't no nation. There are no communities. There ain't none of that without family. So if you in a position, if you feel as if you need to forsake your family to prove devotion to a God, run. Because that ain't the creator. The creator ain't never telling you to forsake your family. The creator ain't never telling you to go kill your family to prove your devotion. The creator ain't never telling you to go to war, sanction warfare. None of that. You feel me? And it's very important in this hour that our people learn that, because high spiritual visitation, just like in the late 1800s, you understand? All that's coming back around to where you dreams, you're gonna be dreaming more, you're gonna be having more apparitions, more visitation. You need to know the character of the creator because you're commanded to try the spirit when it comes to you. Try that spirit.
Exactly. And it says, you know, and that's something that they don't even acknowledge when it says try the spirit. It's like, yo, but they say try the spirit. It's talking about your own Bible too. So if you find something there that's not right and exact, that's why I started to be beating him up, because he was like, the part when the nigga was like, oh, God, she was like, God hearkened your heart. And then he used that against her, the hearkening part. He said, God hearkened my heart so I could be the one to figure out and da-da-da in the Bible. And so it's like he's hitting it with so many counters. It's like, yo, this shit is embarrassing, yo. This shit is embarrassing.
Yeah, it is. It don't look good at all. And then, you know what I mean? She puffed up with something deep. And it's like, look, it's being shown you ain't no deeper than snail nuts, boo-boo. You know what I mean? Like
you definitely got a lot of still a lot of studying and learning to do. Not even on the science. Let the science go. On a theological level, you still got more theological studies in scripture you got to deal with and cross-reference and use logic and common sense. Like when Sarnetta hit her with the goddamn no God, I mean no man has seen God. I'm like, the way she responded, it's like, you not know he's about to hit you with the counter? You not even clear that he's about to hit you with God, Moses seen God, or Jacob seen God face to face. That's the counter. You wasn't even aware of the counter. He's getting you on some old, the verse say God, no man has seen God, right? Yeah, it says, no man has seen God. You're right. But you're supposed to be on the way. I know where you're going with that. That's what the first thing you're supposed to say. I know where you're going with that. You're going where God see man face to face. And then you were supposed to make your argument with those perspectives. But see, being that they don't understand the title and ranks of angels, who is God, and Lord, they can't make sense of that shit.
No. And out here looking silly, man. Like looking real silly. And even the response, she was saying, okay, so if the Most High don't deal with man, so that's Christ, right? She's saying that Christ is the God of Israel, that Christ is the one you worship to and pray to, right? But who you call Christ was a man. All right. So when we go back and say that God is an angel or God is a man, you feel me? Why is that so hard to understand? It shouldn't be hard to understand. She basically saying that Christ is the creator.
Yeah.
Christ is God. You know what I mean? And then who he deal with, you ain't never dealt with. And that's the way a few messianic brews try to explain that away. You know what I mean? But to know it veil if you really know what you're doing, because all the brews have the same precepts, but none of us have the same breakdown and understanding of that. You feel me? Like if you would have had somebody else on there who didn't believe in Christ, but thought they was a Hebrew, their response would have been totally different. It'd been a totally different response.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? So instead of saying, you know what, no, the Bible is inconsistent. It does have
Right.
contradictions.
Right.
There are passages that conflict with each other. There
Right.
are passages that are diametrically opposed. There are
Right.
passages who were written by different scribes at different times, at different time periods, under different inspirations, and with different agendas. Just the facts. And that's why you got Judas dying two different ways in the Bible. You understand? That's
Now,
why you got
with an
Jesus.
explanation like that would have been well respected. You would have got saluted for that if she would have said something like that. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly. Exactly.
What you
Exactly.
about to say
But you
though?
can't. Yeah, but you can't come like that if you have if you feel that the Bible is infallible or has no errors in it. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? Once
Right.
we slow you down and show you, like, no, it does have errors. Look at this. Okay,
Right.
look at that. He revealed himself as Jehovah to Moses and said Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob never knew him as Jehovah. It says it right
Right.
there in Exodus 6:3.
Exactly.
But if you go over to Genesis 22:14,
That's
Abraham
right.
is calling on the name of Jehovah.
Jehovah. That's right.
So instead of trying to explain this away, instead of trying to make it say what it don't say,
Right.
you best off saying, yeah, that is a contradiction. And that's
Right.
so much easier for you. You ain't got to walk around like trying to defend something that obviously has holes in it. Now that's a
Yeah.
contradiction, bro. It said
Like,
right there that Jehovah was known to Moses and he never revealed that name to Abraham, Isaac, nor Jacob. Then we go
right.
over into Genesis and we see all them calling on the name of Jehovah. So
Exactly.
what is that? Yeah.
And see,
What
they
is
putting a heavy burden on themselves by trying to defend the book when nigga, this book was here before you was even born. Why are you holding so tight and possessing to the book like that? You see what I'm saying? It's like you
it?
got to defend the book. It's like no, the book's supposed to defend itself. And if the
Yeah,
book is contradicting, why are you defending the book like that to try to cover up the contradiction?
the
Like who do
extreme
that?
ignorance. When it look,
Extreme ignorance.
when extreme ignorance overrides common sense, we in a
Mm,
bad shape, bro. You in a bad shape. Common sense. Anybody that has a small level of reading comprehension can say, okay, no, that says two different things. You feel me? But when
exactly.
ignorance overrides common sense, you in a bad shape. Bad shape, man.
Yeah, they got a lot of explaining with that, man. That's why it's like, yo. But and then the next thing is like when they coming out of Egypt and they did the 40 years in the wilderness. So we got to re-examine the Aaron priesthood.
Yes.
Is the Aaron priesthood the priesthood of Moloch and carrying the burdens of Moloch, like you've been talking for some years now? I know that. I'm bringing it out. Cosbound is bringing it out. So that got to be re-examined. Is the priesthood of Aaron offering burnt offerings and sacrifice to Moloch?
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. It's right in your Bible. It's right in your Bible. Amos 5:25-27. Matter of fact, start back up at like verse 18. Or verse 21. He gonna tell you flat out, I despise the feast days, the burnt offerings. I will not smell in your solemn assemblies. I don't care if you niggas making joyful music. I don't want nothing to do with what y'all talking about. Was those sacrifices to me in the wilderness 40 years? No, you did offer all that to Molech. You did carry his tabernacle. Your God, your images, your store, you made to yourselves.
Mm.
Good night. What is we talking about?
But that's spooky because when you read Leviticus, we're getting the detailed account of Moloch right there in
I,
Leviticus.
I know.
Niggas
I
thinking that
know.
shit.
Chopped off
Niggas thinking this is going to Yahweh, the Lord
dog.
Yahweh, but it's goddamn Moloch, and it's the
hey, hey, because you know a false God can appear in any name. You know
exactly.
what I mean? So we shouldn't even be so caught up in them names. But man, if you reread, brothers and sisters, just reread Leviticus. Start at chapter 1.
Yeah,
It'll blow your mind. It's chopped off goat heads on the altar. Chopped off heads on the altar. The damn head is chopped off. Come on, there ain't no way in the world. Look, if you walk today, if you went to the butcher shop today, if you saw a man dressed up in a Leviticus garment, an Aaron garment today, chopping the damn head off a lamb or a goat, you gonna say, "Oh hell no, he is some type of voodoo or something." Man, that look evil.
Or that's like going to the butcheries and the niggas who's killing the cows and all that. They look at you and say, "Hey man, we offering these cows to the Lord." Can you imagine going to the butchery areas, and these niggas is chopping up these cows, and they come to you and say, "Hey man, we're doing this for the Lord. We're gonna burn these as a burnt offering to the Lord God." All these chickens,
Man.
cows.
Hey, and all you hear is that blade dropping. Fire! Hey, what's going on back there? It did.
Hey, look, goat heads.
Hey, look. Here in St. Louis, we got a meat market. We got a slaughterhouse called Super Lord Meat Market, right?
Uh-huh.
And every year, this is when I still was chewing on the back of animals, right? Every year for the Passover, we would go down there and get lamb shoulders, have them chopped up into like quarter-inch steaks or whatever. You know what I mean? For the Passover that's coming, right? I used to be the one going down there to get it. Me and a couple other brothers. Bro, listen to me. When you step up in that deal, and you know them slaughterhouses, they keep cold. You know what I mean? Because if it's warm, it's like the smell incubates and spreads even more. But they keep cold, bro. The smell is horrendous. All you smell is blood and wet, soggy flesh, right? And bro, they in there. Gator meat, lizard meat, chicken, turkeys, lamb, goats, and whatever you want up in this deal, boy. You see what I'm saying? And what I'm saying is, I used to watch them like chop up these portions of flesh and all that. In my spirit, I used to be like, man, that's horrendous.
Exactly.
You did? And we finna go smoke this meat. We finna go smoke this and dedicate this to the Lord.
And then not only that, in the scriptures it says they offered it before the Lord.
Yeah.
They standing before this nigga, offering it up. Coming back to what you were saying, offering idols.
Yeah.
How you say it? What's the quote?
Meat's offered to idols.
Meat offers to idols. Because when you look at the depiction of Moloch, it shows him as an idol, and it shows the Jews or whoever offering the baby up to the idol.
Yeah, exactly, bro. All that was going on, man. And what we ain't realizing is we thinking that Moses wrote the Torah that you had today.
Let's talk about it.
You know what I mean? Nah. See, by the time when you get to the history of it, and I challenge every brother and sister to get into the compilation of the Bible, get into how it was compiled.
Okay.
If you start there, you won't be deceived because you'll start seeing, well, hold on. By the time we got to Babylon, whatever Moses wrote, if he wrote anything, was already destroyed and burnt.
Right.
All right. So the commission was left up to your boy Ezra.
Right.
They didn't have a written Torah in Babylon. Right. Okay. So they had to come out of bondage with a refurbished Torah. That means Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. All that was written by Ezra, not Moses.
That's right.
All that was written by Ezra. And if you read the Apocrypha, 2nd Ezra, chapter 14 gives you the whole process and history on how you got the Torah that you have today. You see what I'm saying? And the crazy part about that, even with that, it was supposed to be 204 books of the Torah.
Facts.
And then he was supposed to hide 70 of them, right? So that means there's supposed to be 134 books of the Torah that the public has.
Right.
Your entire Bible don't even got 100 books.
See, imagine that.
Yeah.
That's why probably a lot of these old, because that's before even the 1st century, so we can't even apply the Gospels to that.
Yeah.
This is you're talking 4th century BC, so whatever. Damn, and then he got that shit through automatic mouth mumbling, so ain't no telling what he wrote.
Exactly. and where all that stuff at. And see, if you trip off of it, Rome been playing that, man. Like Rome been playing the editor and the filter on the knowledge. You know what I mean? Since see, at first the library was in Alexandria, Egypt. That's where all the knowledge was coming out of. All right. But by the time Jerusalem fell and they burnt the library at Alexandria, everything went to the catacombs in Rome. Right. Everything. All your Torahs, all your Gospels, all your letters, the Gnostic literatures, the Essene literatures, the Nazarene, all that, when you done talking, by the time when the smoke settles, when the smoke finally settles, everything is coming out of Rome.
That's true, yo.
Everything. Everything. So we got to scrutinize all of it. And if it don't make sense, then you got every right to be like, no, I'm not, that don't even make sense to me.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Just by the compilation, like you say, of the text, through the Hebrew, the Greek, the Latin, and then the English, yeah, you should understand that this shit got some problems with it. You know what I mean?
I heard you bring up Ptolemy Philadelphus and dealing with the Septuagint, the translation with that.
Yeah.
See? And that's after Ezra's mouth mumble.
Yeah, matter of fact, that's the next highlight after, as far as, I mean, that's a good point as far as you said, dealing with the chronology of the translation, because so-called Moshe, then from Moshe, the next highlight is Ezra. And then, because you got Torah, then Tanakh, and then after that, like you said, was Ptolemy II when he created the Septuagint.
Yeah. Yes. You see, so you got then all your every Bible that you have today, every Bible that you have today with a New Testament and Old Testament, believe it or not, the New Testament is quoting the Septuagint. The Old Testament is the Masoretic text. All right, Masorah, the Masoretes, but they was 10th century AD. They 10th century of the Common Era. You dig? The Septuagint is what 200-300 before the Common Era.
That's right.
You dig? So all your Old Testaments are Masoretic texts, meaning the Masoretes, 10th century Common Era. All right.
That's a big gap right there too.
Bro, you talking about 1,300 years?
Right. Yeah.
That's like 1,300 years. You dig? And then your New Testament though is quoting the Septuagint though. So it shouldn't be no wonder why in Acts chapter 7, Stephen says 75 people out of Jacob's loins went down into Egypt. And when you go over to Exodus, the first chapter, you see it was 70 people.
That's right.
But when you go into the Septuagint and look at Exodus, you see it was 75. So the New Testament is quoting the Septuagint, while the Old Testament is based off the Masoretic text. So that little bit of history right there is going to have the New Testament and the Old Testament at war with each other. You see what I'm saying? Because it ain't like the Old Testament you have is the Septuagint in the KJV. That's Masoretic. It's the Masoretic text. Right. But the New Testament in the KJV is quoting the Septuagint.
They quote that Greek literature. But that's interesting because we got to account for them 1,300 years where the Torah, where the Tanakh was floating around there.
Yeah, and then you realize that the brothers like Yahshua, they had major problems with the written Torah that they had in their day.
That's facts.
You know what I mean?
That's facts.
That's why there's so many beefs and problems. Like, nah, y'all looking at that wrong. No, the scribes and tampered with that. No, you know what I mean? The Levitical priests and scribes and tampered with that for the benefit of the priesthood. You see? So that's why them brothers had a problem with it. You see right there, he talking against it. He like, look, it's written, it say this, but I say do it like this.
Right, facts.
It says this. It says you can perform a vow. You dig? And if you swear, you better pay it. But I say don't swear at all.
Right.
So anything other than this is of the evil one. So he just called that law of vowing in Numbers 5 or Leviticus 5 of the devil,
and he of
the evil one.
And he right.
Hey,
look where you're pulling it from. You're pulling it from the time of Leviticus, which is the priesthood of Moloch.
Yeah. yeah. And he said right there, anything other than that is of the evil, which means the evil one. You see what I'm saying? So even Messiah, if you slow down and read the Gospels, if you're dealing with the biblical narrative, he had problems with the written Torah of his day. You know what I mean? And he was making a distinction between the written Torah and the higher law, dealing with Creator. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Dealing with loving your neighbor and all that.
Right.
Loving Creator with all you got. You understand? That's what he was about. It's real simple. You feel me? But the written Torah that they was trying to put people into bondage and subjugate, he's like, nah, that's off. You know what I mean? And when you get into further stuff like the Nazarene Acts, Peter tell you, he's like, nah, we was taught that it's many contradictions, it's many tamperings. You feel me? Like for instance, when it say, not one jot or tittle shall pass from the law till all be fulfilled in Matthew 5. Right? See, the brother like, see, the Torah still stands. Not one jot or tittle shall pass. Peter explains it and says, well, whatever has passed away, whatever you niggas ain't doing, didn't belong in there in the first place. It wasn't law anyway. You feel me? And what you ain't doing, you ain't sacrificing no animals. You ain't doing no type of temple services. You ain't dissecting and pulling out organs and scraping the fat off the liver and throwing it on the altar. You ain't sprinkling blood. You ain't doing none of this. So whatever ain't getting done is because it is not part of the Creator's divine plan in the first place.
Wow.
Meaning, Messiah was talking about two different Torahs. He's talking about a whole total different law than what they had written down.
And it makes sense because even in the Owaspis said they had two laws, the Leviticus law, the written law, and the oral law, the higher law. So more likely Yahshua was coming with the higher law, and they couldn't comprehend it because they was dealing with that goddamn Moloch priesthood and shit.
Exactly, chopped off head, bro. When we I remember you showed it. I remember you showed the chopped off goat heads on the altar on that table, bro. You should show that, bro. Man, I'm like, bro, that dude say that
with the Indian man holding the goddamn
yeah.
Hold on, let me see if I can pull that up real quick, man.
Bro,
yeah, that shit was ugly right there, man. I said, this is what y'all niggas doing? Let me see if I can find that. Hold on. Yeah, that shit right there, man. And it's over because, nigga got these presentations sitting, so it's like, shit, whenever debate topic come up, it just rehash these motherfuckers.
Yeah, it's easy work. You notice they ain't trying to debate, bro.
You talking about this guy right here?
Yeah, look at that.
That nigga cheesing, boy.
That boy got that Sandman green on. You know what I mean?
Let's come into the verse. I'll start at 5. And he shall kill the bullock before the Lord, and the priest Aaron's son shall bring the blood and sprinkle the blood round about upon the altar that is by the door of the tabernacle of Moloch, of course, of the congregation. And he shall flay the burnt offering and cut into his pieces. And the sons of Aaron and the priest shall put fire upon the altar and lay the wood in order upon the fire. And the priest, Aaron's son, shall lay the parts, the head and the fat in order, and upon the wood that is on the fire, which is upon the altar. And there you have it. And the reason I got the little kids down there is because this is the same process they would have had to follow when they was doing child sacrifice as a burnt offering.
Exactly.
That would have been infants' goddamn heads on the table, and them niggas would have been cheesing the same goddamn way, offering that shit up to the goddamn Moloch. And then the last part, but in his inwards and legs shall he wash in water, and the priest shall burn all on the altar to be a burnt sacrifice, an offering made by fire of a sweet savior unto the Lord. So that's how it's looking right there. This is what them niggas is offering to the Lord.
That's crazy, boy.
And that's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's just 10 go heads. Don't we got scriptures where them niggas is bringing like 1,000 go heads and shit?
Bro, if you think about it, all right, well, according to the biblical narrative, it's supposed to be one lamb for each house. According to the first Passover, according to the biblical narrative, it's supposed to be one lamb per house, right? Well, bro, it was 600,000 foot soldiers that left Egypt. So if each one of those foot soldiers have a house, or has a wife or a family, bro, that means it's 600,000 lambs who had to be murdered just to get out of Egypt. Right? Now say, well, okay, those numbers are too big. We'll cut them in half. We'll say it was one lamb between two houses. That's still 300,000 lambs had to get killed. If we say one lamb covered four houses, that's still 150,000 lambs got to be killed, bro.
And not only that. Now go ahead, finish your building. I got my add on to what you were saying.
Yeah, so when you're dealing with like the numbers when it comes down to Passover from Egypt all the way up to the New Testament, for every year hundreds of thousands of lambs were killed just for Passover. Just for Passover. Stop it. What are you talking about?
And coming back to what you were saying, when you brought up Numbers 35, I think, and you was talking about if you spilled the blood defiles the land and it cannot be cleansed.
Yeah. And I be cleansed by the blood of him that shed it, bro. So blood defiles the land. Numbers 35 and 33.
Right.
It defiles the land. You know what I mean? It really ain't no getting around it. It's just we've been so devoted to the false God for so long, and we tell people common sense like, hey, the creator ain't with the murder and the bloodshed. We think that's blasphemy. That's blasphemy. Like, bro, you saying being peaceful is blasphemy? Preserving life is blasphemy. Is that what he's saying? Right.
And the crazy thing is that what they can't, the hardest time they having the problem is that it's in the Bible. So that's what's bugging them. That's what's irritating them, because we showing you that it's a God in this book that is pretending to be the Most High, and I think that's what's scaring niggas.
Yeah,
that fact alone is putting niggas in a frenzy, because if they realize, if they acknowledge that, then the next question is, well, they back at square one. Do I go search for other books to see if I can find who God is? Do I go to Islam? Where do I go from here if this biblical God is not who he say he is?
Yeah. And I understand the fear, especially if you got chestnuts roasting on an open fire hanging over your head for all eternity. You feel me? So I understand the fear, but if you just slow down and breathe and listen to what we're saying, nobody's telling you there's not a creator.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
That's weird.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
That's where you headed, boy. To pine oil.
But no, finish your build. I had to throw that in. I had to upload it real quick. But go ahead.
Yeah, but that's what's hanging over our people's head. That scares them. You understand? So our people are afraid to even look further than what it is. Our people are trapped or bound. And trust me, I understand. You understand? I've been teaching Israel a very long time. I understand. But if you slow down and breathe and just think about what we're saying, nobody's telling you there is not a creator. Right? Nobody's telling you that there weren't great men who the creator sent to shed light in a dark world, such as Yahshua, such as Moses, such as Brahma, such as Papilia, such as China, such as Abraham, such as, you understand? Nobody is saying that. Nobody is saying any of that. What we're saying is we've been played like puppets dealing with the false gods. It ain't just one false god in the Bible. It's many.
Exactly.
It's many fronting like they are the creator. You see what I'm saying?
And then you do. No, go ahead. Finish, Bill.
I was saying that don't mean like you can't get understanding or righteous jewels out the Bible, because you can't. You feel me? When Yahshua telling you to love the creator with all you have and love your neighbors yourself, that's right and exact.
Exactly.
That's right and exact. You know what I mean? So it ain't like you can't get righteous jewels that you can apply to your life out the Bible. All we saying is it's time to take the training wheels off and really be responsible with your spiritual progression. You understand? And if what you are reading goes against the nature of the creator, then you got a right to call it for what it is. And say, no, that's off. That's off. I'm not dealing with that. You know what I mean? Nobody is turning you into an atheist around it.
Right.
You feel me? We telling you your creator is sufficient for you. Your creator is sufficient for you.
And that's what we're replacing them with. We exposing the false god and telling you, yo, we giving you creator. You may not like the fact that it's coming out the Owaspi, but you can't deny how creator is displayed in the Owaspi. You know what I mean? So it's like y'all. This is the condition y'all got to deal with. Y'all got to face the fact that your forefathers in this Bible was following a false god, while you got a man, a European in modern times, who gave a book that's revealing creator's word. So it's up to them how they're going to face the reality of dealing with this truth. They're going to continue to follow these false gods, be caught up in a goddamn knot in one of these hells, and we got to go deliver these niggas and tell them niggas, see, I told you so.
Yeah. Well, you can avoid all that. You can avoid all that and really love the creator and serve him by doing righteous works on the others. It's really that simple, man. It ain't even that hard for real. We make it hard when we become devoted, you know what I mean, to the false god. The last what was that? The last Thor that came out.
Oh, yes. Yeah. You put me onto that.
Bruh, in the beginning of it, this devoted man to this god, him and his daughter died. Well, his daughter had died, right? And then he had him a vision, and he kind of like crossed over, and they died in the desert. He looked up and saw an oasis, trees and water and all that. He go through the oasis, and he starts seeing fruit and everything. So he jumped down, started eating the fruit, and his god is over there. His god and other gods are over there, and they was like, look at the dog. And so old boy recognized the God because of his image. He recognized him, right? And he says, my Lord, my God, we have kept the faith. My daughter has died. She kept the faith. The only thing left is for you to make good on your eternal reward. The God laughed at him. He said, he thinks there's an eternal reward. Drove this nigga. Called him a dog. Stop eating my fruit. Kicked him. You know what I mean? And then mocked him again. He thinks there's an eternal reward.
Right.
So by the time dude realized that he been played by a false god, he gets angry. Right? And he told dude, he say, look, I'll never worship you again because the false gods get their power through your devotion, your worship.
That's right.
So he said, man, I'll never worship you again. You dig? Dude was like, well, it don't matter. We'll tear down and build more and get more worship. He said, there's nothing left. So then the god gets up and grab him by the neck and lift him up off his feet, right? And then this sword come up. Dude becomes the god killer. Sword come up into his hand, and he gut the false god, and then he cut his head off. And from that point forward, he was known as the God Killer. But I found that quite ironic that he devoted his whole life to this false ass god, crossed over, and the god mocked him.
Right.
The god mocked him. You feel me?
And then that's a sign of how the Owaspi talks about these false gods, their own people is the ones that's going to turn on them. Once they realize that who they thought was the creator wasn't, and the chopping of the head is like the significance of nigga being cast in a knot. Chaos.
Yeah. Eventually the false gods get jumped and stripped of their jewels, their kingdom. They could jump out like the one boy Luamong, it was like, was it 1,000,000 to 1 on that boy? I forgot how much it was. Yo, that boy got jumped, stripped, stomped out, stripped of his jewels.
Right.
You know what I mean? By your slaves.
But you know what? We gotta hope this nigga Luamong don't try to pull an Anu Hassaj and shit. Go to hell and get redeemed and still be up to some mischief and shit.
Matter of fact, that's who I was talking about. Anu Hassaj, him. False god. He got stripped, jumped. It was like 1,000,000 to 1 on that boy, man. You dig? So the false gods and their kingdoms eventually fall, and their subjects, their devotees, are the ones that realize they've been played, and they jump them and bind them and cast them into hell. You see what I'm saying?
That's so sad.
Come back to your creator, family. That's it. Come back to your creator.
That's it, to
He's
avoid
sufficient.
all that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Niggas, it's like we telling the young niggas, yo, don't bang. Don't join that, because you know it's a lot that comes with that. Man, I'm doing what I want. He go join, get jumped, beat up, throwing shots, get shot, then decide, hey, man, you was right, man. I should have never did that shit. I went out. Now you can't get out, because if you drop your colors, now they want to kill you for it's blood in, blood out. So now they got to get you. So you know what I mean? Now they got you in spirit. Now the judges got you.
Yeah, bro. That's what I'm saying. So, I mean, it just makes so much sense. Dealing with a creator that's universal, it makes sense that his service to him should be able to be applied no matter what your condition, no matter what your ethnic proclivity, no matter what your skin color is, no matter what your financial status, you dig? No matter what condition, on death row or a newborn child, right? All should be able, no matter what their condition is, to be in service to the Creator. You feel me? And so that makes sense why the service of the Creator is simple, right? Remove the idols out your heart and practice doing righteous work unto others. You understand?
Exactly.
Work on the purity of the body. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, because it's a verse in the Oscar. I think it's in the it's either in the book of S or the book of Esra, when it says, those who strove against the Creator from 3,000 years previous came back pure and holy in service to the Creator, and they was great slaughterers of the faithers of old. These the niggas that was persecuting the faithers, murdering these niggas. They done return back 3,000 years later as holy goddamn saints to the Creator. I was like, God damn. That's like them Hitler boys and the Mussolini boys doing that shit they're doing now. 3,000 years coming back as holy ones, because they done did their abidings. They went through their shit. They got cleaned up. So I said, look at that.
Yeah,
everybody
bro.
Get cleaned up, yo.
Like your boy Uhura, Lasitas. You know what I mean? Shit. He another one. Lasitas, boy. That boy got stripped of his jewels, jumped, but he came back hard body though. Like he labored in the lower heavens, man, for 2,000 years?
Yeah, he been yeah. You know what? That's a good point, because Uhura, he been rocking out since the book of Divinity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's been around for a minute. And it's crazy because the story of Uhura is interesting, because in that story, you see him preparing to make a coming to the earth.
Yeah.
He came in the pyramids, 7 pyramid-shaped pyramids. Spaceships in the shape of pyramids. And he was going to make what you have in the book of Revelation in chapter 19, talking about the second coming of Christ. He was making a similar appearance to that in his reign, to prove his authority to mortals and angels. He's coming with the triumphant, the loud sound. I'm reading this shit like, yo, this is just like Revelation talking about the second coming of Messiah. Every knee gonna bow down, everybody gonna fall to the face, but he ain't even get a chance to rock out, because, like you say, his heavenly kingdom was getting pillaged, and he had to go. He had to rush back to the kingdom.
Yep. So he finally got out of here, man, with the Serpenti armies, the chieftainess, the Orion goddess.
Yeah.
He finally got out of here, man. But he spent like 2,000 years in the lower heavens, working to redeem, to clean up his mess, man.
Facts. And what? And then Anu got up out of here during Lika time. I think son of Lika, son of Jehovah. I think Anu got up out of here during that time. I forget.
Yeah,
I gotta go back and look.
Yeah, he may be. I think Anu may still be late.
That nigga still may be here. You know what? You're right, because all of them boys still here. Yeah, I was. You know what? Yeah, they right. They still here, because I was thinking 2048 they could possibly be their ascension, but Anu Hassas, man, he put a man.
Hey, bro, I read his judgment, because remember he came before the judgment, and the God that was down with the Creator told him, judge yourself. That was so cold. He was like, judge yourself. And look, off his own lips, as long as the names of Lord and God are worshipped in this earth, he ain't got no ascension. He got to labor. He right here. He right here laboring against the very doctrine he birthed.
Hey, that nigga probably laboring with Lou Among and shit. Lou Among, Jabril, Ashtaroth, Baal, all them niggas got to be clicked up laboring right now together, figuring out a solution and consulting how the fuck we gonna reverse this shit we done did for the last 5,000-6,000 years.
Yeah, man. But you know, all that's coming down, man. All the worship of man worship is being destroyed in this hour. The
Yeah,
worship of gods, lords, saviors, all that's
right,
being crushed in this hour, bro. Now, I mean,
right.
I salute you, brother, man, because you've been straight going hard for a long time in opposition to what this is about. I first saw you on YouTube back in 2015 when you had a debate with the Israelite elder, you know what I mean, about
Man,
time
Millie.
and all that.
Yeah, man,
And
Millie.
it was a slaughter. If y'all ain't seen that, y'all need to go watch that. It was a slaughter. I say good night. See, so the thing, when I first watched it, in my mind, I was like, well, maybe in the book of Enoch, because I see the elder ain't go to Enoch. Maybe in the book of Enoch, he may have some things to, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Not realize Enoch can't hold a candle to what you, the content. It can't be real with yourself. You know what I mean? So I first seen you like standing on this understanding out of Waspi, bro. Back I first seen you in 2015. You
Mm-hmm.
feel me? And even when that debate went down, I was real within myself, like, good, like he just washed his elder. He washed him. It wasn't even funny. He didn't want to come up for the second round, I think it was.
Hey, and that's what the camera caught, my nigga. If you could have been there, because after the cameras went off, some more people came around and quit. Man, that nigga shut down, and I had the floor for the rest of the joint because people was coming up asking about the chart, and when they seen the history, when motherfuckers seen it, because I had the 23rd and the 24th arc cycle charted out on the chart. So when niggas coming down, they see the top part, you know, the 8 gardens, the 4 ages, the
Yeah,
half age, the arc cycles. When them niggas
yeah.
see them histories, them niggas was like, "What the fuck is this?" They seen
Hey,
the Egypt. They seen everything right there on the chart. Whatever I had recorded as far as highlights of history, it was right there.
bruh, listen to me. When you went to that bag and pulled out that scroll, I say, I say, what this nigga got in this bag, man? Man, he already got some shit rolled out on the ground. Man, when you went in that bag and pulled out some more scrolls, I
That
say,
was
man,
the
who is this, bro?
that was the fucking secret weapon right there. Everybody thought the big scut. Nah. It was the small little motherfucker that was that deadly weapon that pulled out. Because when I pulled out the history, it was over. Because you had the history and you had the reigning gods simultaneously with the history, so you could see which gods was influencing the people during the time. So the nigga ain't had nothing to say. He was. You know what I mean? Even his people, when they seen that, they was like, man, ain't none of them niggas step up to the plate. Most of his people was there at the debate. They ain't step up to the plate. He ain't catch most of them on camera, but they were there.
Man, bro, you went there and rolled that out, and then I said you start like zooming out so you can see more of it. I was like, this is handwritten.
Yeah.
If y'all listening to me, never seen that debate, it was handwritten. I say, nah, this cat's serious.
Not only was it handwritten, but I took paper like this and put that bitch together and taped it.
They taped it, yeah, I seen it.
You want to talk about devotion and dedication, nigga? I was on some crackhead shit when I figured out that part of the watch. I said, I gotta make this chart. Boom, boom, boom. I'm gonna redo the shit because they got this material at Walmart in the fabric section. It's a nice little material, and I'm gonna redo it, and I'm gonna put some sticks on the edges and have it like the big scroll, the main big scroll, and then I'm gonna have the smaller scrolls, the arc cycle. So each cycle is gonna be a scroll. So we want to talk about the 24th. Pull that bitch out, scroll it out. They go to histories right there. Anytime, whatever history need to be placed, I'll just mark it as I go. But the highlights from the Nakada, the Ubaid period, 4th millennium BC, coming down to the pre-dynastic Egypt, to Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom, nigga, we got all that shit mapped out. You know what I'm saying? So it's like when the Sinetta and them boys be talking about the Israelites and them boys don't do history, nigga, we got the whole shit charted out.
Man, bro. You do it like that, and you should roll it up like one of them Torah scrolls. You know,
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Where they cover it up and they walk through and do a Sabbath procession or something. And look, if we ever have some debates in person,
that's how we
bring out
nigga.
all the scrolls. They're gonna be looking like, yeah, they're gonna be like, boy, whatever they got in that bag or them scrolls, boy, good night. You know what I mean? All I got is Genesis 1.
Exactly. But now you hit it on the head, just like how they got the Torah scrolls. That's exactly how I want to have the scrolls. So we got the 20. And see, the reason I just say the 23rd and the 24th arc cycle is because that's the main history of the last 6,000 years. We know we start going to the 20th, going back. That's damn near the Stone Ages and the caveman days. Niggas ain't even studying that. But that last 6,000 years, we put that under the fucking scope, under the light, under the radar, and show them niggas like this was going on. This why this happened.
Yeah, it lined right up too, bro. That's what look, it's frighteningly accurate. When you look at it, you dig, and then for any Israelite listening, that if we start talking about these things like time, cosmogony, and all that, and we pulling up certain artifacts from 12,000 years ago, 15,000 years ago, 18,000 years ago, right? And we get on this dialogue, a debate, or a build about time, and your only answer is, well, we don't know what method they use to do these dates. Then this is not a conversation for you. This is above your pay grade. You need to exit stage left and go on back to pre-K and deal on over there with the A, B, C, D. You need to go on back to pre-K. This is not a conversation. This is above your pay grade. If your only response is, well, I really don't know how they're, testing. What methodology are they using to test the time?
Facts.
You know what I mean? When we show you that the world Earth is actually older than 6,000 years, 12,000 years, 15,000 years, it's older than that. And we show you that and we pull the artifacts up and your only excuse is you don't know the methodology of keeping time, then this is above your pay grade, boo-boo.
Exactly.
Keep it moving.
And when I did the Cycle of Thor presentation, I pulled a couple sources to show that, you know what I mean? This shit go back long before some goddamn 6,000 and 10,000 years. And here it says the ancient North Americans gouged elaborated rock art into a heap of big boulders northeast of Reno, Nevada, more than 10,000 years ago, perhaps 15,000 years ago. That makes the carving the oldest known petroglyph on the continent.
Wow.
So that means somebody had to be here 10 to 15,000 years ago to make this work. I mean, to carve these stones. And then the Owaski, it says during the time of Apollo, the copper-colored people sprang up on the scene. The Irons and the Drunks was here. And that was a couple arc cycles before. That was the arc cycle before Thor. That the Owaski talks about the copper-colored people springing up. And then you have the cycle after Thor. Now we see the markings in North America 10 to 15,000 years ago by the same people that Owaski mentioned in the previous cycle that sprang up. The Angui that Cosmo like to talk about, the Angui. And then we have the more petroglyphs. Yeah, the petroglyphs. Yeah, the petroglyphs. That shit kills her whole argument.
Yeah, man. See, that's what I'm saying. So if you are around here thinking that the earth is 6,000 years old, or Hebrew, based off the Hebrew chronology, though, you know what I mean? I don't care what you feel as if you got going on. Look, the Hebrew scholars, those who are doctors at chronology and PhD, look, they got the earth being created, y'all, in 3761 BC. According to the Hebrew calendar, it is the year 5783 since the creation. It ain't even been 6,000 years. So how do we know that's false? My brother got pictures up on the screen going back 15,000 years. You dig? So the whole timing, the whole chronology of the Bible, the time, you go by the Hebrew calendar. I understand all that. But then if I ask you, okay, every calendar got a date on it. What year is it? Oh, we really don't know. Then how can you say you go by a calendar if you don't know what date it is? You know what I mean?
Coming to what you were saying right there. There you go. You said 3761 BC is when the creation is supposed to take place. Yep. But as you see here, 3761 BC, shit, that's within the 23rd arc cycle. The 23rd arc cycle started 3953 BC, and their creation of the heavens and the earth, the 6-day creation story, started 3761 BC. Huh? Roughly close to 200 years after. And then the genealogy from the creation story to Noah is supposedly 1,656 years, which will bring us to 2106 BC, which is the Middle Kingdom of Egypt. Right there.
That's crazy.
That's why, Mally, if we would have did that conversation on the Black Man podcast, when you was gonna do, I was gonna let you do your presentation first, and I was gonna bring this screen up to back what you were saying.
Absolutely. Hill ain't hollered at me either. It's supposed to be today sometime. I ain't getting no type of holler from him.
Damn, I forgot all about that shit. Honestly, I ain't even. But their whole creation story, from the 7-day creation story to the time of Jesus, is all within the 23rd and the 24th arc cycle after the creation of man.
That's crazy.
And then when we look at it on the scale, that's how it looks on the scale right there. This is the 23rd and the 24th. This is the creation of man right up here. 23 arc cycles in is when their creation of existence begin.
That's crazy, boy.
And look at the time of the flood on our chart. The time of the flood is the 17th arc. Their flood story is right here. Right here, 2106 BC. In the 23rd. You see how we can dismantle this shit, family? Easily dismantled. So when you bring out what you talking about, as far as how you was gonna expose the Sabbath, how they changed it, and then go into the date, I was gonna back it and just show the chart and show, look, we ain't even gotta say nothing, just show the chart and have y'all scratch the head. We'll just explain what's going on with these arc cycles, how we count, how the OSP tell us how time is counted. But then in this process, we're gonna show you where your creation story fits within the measure of our time.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at it, bro, you know, you can't even hold a candle to it. You see what I'm saying? Like, if the historians, and then trip off this, you may say, well, nah, bro, I don't deal with the chronologists. I deal with like jubilees, because a lot of brothers do. You know what I mean? And they shot at no brothers, but when you get into jubilees, when it starts doing the counting, everything is from the creation of the world or the creation of Adam, right? And depending on what version of Jubilees you're reading, it'll say 1 a.m. or 8 a.m.
The one I had that.
Yeah, the a.m. stands for Anno Mundi, which is Latin for since the creation of the world. So when it say 8 a.m., it means 8 years since the world was created.
Keep building. Go ahead. Let me just open this light real quick. Go ahead. I'm listening.
Yeah, so the whole timeline for that the Hebrew chronologists are using is in the book of Jubilees. Once you get a Jubilees that has the AM in quotations, you're gonna start seeing the time periods. And you're gonna say, hold on, man. Okay, well that's it. Okay, so Seth was born when Adam was 130 years. It tell you right in Jubilees, 1:30 a.m. Okay, and then you start going on down and start seeing other key significant events and how they're trying to place it within the spectrum of world history. You see, so that's what I was going to do. I was going to show the Jubilees timeline. I was going to show the Anno Mundi, what it meant. And
so let me ask you this. So do the Jubilees timeline still start at 3761 BC?
Yeah. It's
it's game over for them niggas. Yeah, it's still game over for them niggas.
It's still a 6,000 year period. It may be off by a couple hundred years, but it's still 6,000. It's still the same time.
Yeah, it's game over then.
Yeah, I think Jubilees instead of 3761 is 4,000 BC. But it's still what is that? 250 years, 240 years?
Hey, still a 23rd arc cycle. How about
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So even if you're gonna say as a Hebrew, I don't believe in what the Jewish people were saying, it's the year 5783. But yeah, if you read the book of Jubilees, well, bro, Jubilees is on the 6,000 year table as well. According to Jubilees, it's only been 6,000 years.
That's crazy.
So if that's true, why do we got petroglyphs from 18,000 years ago? You see? Instead of saying, you know what, yeah, it's something off with it. We'll try to say, well, I don't know the methodology of the dating they're using. No. This is above the pay grade.
If you want to talk about the methodology and the date you're using, you got to go through every single petroglyph because there's hundreds of them. Yeah. So you're gonna say that for every one of them, or it's a lot of petroglyphs out there. And ain't none
And
of them going to come down to no goddamn 6,000. There's going to be some that's going to predate that number. Like we just read in North America. So North America is older than your creation story.
That's crazy, bro. That's crazy. So we should be able to look within ourselves, family, and say, you know what, that don't make sense. I mean, think about it. Children do it all the time. Nah, that don't make sense. You know what I mean? We done got old. We done got old and lost our imaginations. You know, we done got old and got disconnected from the voice of the Creator that's been speaking through our souls since before every last one of us can remember.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? We done got away from what we know is right for books. You dig? And men and men are not infallible but fallible. Men have agendas. Men are corner at times. Hey, even JBN, they want to talk bad about JBN, but he's a regular man. He had marital problems. You know what I mean? Had another daughter outside his wife and had
typical nigga shit, you know.
So it's just normal men shit he going through. So don't nobody worship this man or nothing like that, bro. Dig? So hey, I'm about to talk about the Bible. I'm about to drop off because it's charging. My phone about to die because it's charging. I'm gonna check you out. I'm still be online chopping it up in the chat, but man, salute to the God.
Good building with the God, man.
Yeah, you know great game, baby. You bring and we raise.
Y'all subscribe to Honor and Humility STL. My brother Malachi Maccabee coming through, dropping some gems like always. Y'all go check out that last video he did. You know what I mean? Exposing Paul, the Edomite, the goddamn Herodian. You know what I mean? Salute to the God. I think it froze up. You there, King? I think his phone went. His phone went dready. Yeah, for keep it forward.
On an open fire.
That's where you headed, boy.
Let's run the rhythm for a minute. You know what I mean? The chestnuts are roast. Because we roasting these false gods right now.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
That's where you headed, boy. To pine oil heaven.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
That's where you headed, boy. To pine oil heaven.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
That's where you headed, boy. To pine oil heaven.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
Yes, family, it was an excellent build with the brother Malachi Maccabee, like always. You know how we do. It's a blood clot vibes. Run the rhythm. Give me a one in the chat if you enjoyed the build with me and Malachi Maccabee as we spoke on many various topics dealing with first century fraudulent conspiracies of the Christian and church fathers, the stealing of the life of Apollonius of Tyana. Let me win it to these false gods, false priesthood of Aaron. The priesthood of Aaron and the priesthood of Moloch, as we expose the chapter and verse. You know how we do. It's a blood clot vibes. Tekiva, I see you, Tekiva in the building. Awaken to the truth, Sister Pam. Yeah, Pam, you're gonna enjoy that Antiquities Unveiled. That thing drops some knowledge. And see, that's the dope shit, see that Antiquities Unveiled, that shit came around the same time as a Waspy, you know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, I read it before. It ain't fucking with a Waspy by a long shot, but it's just interesting how it shows how the first century, within that time period, the spirits of those men, one thing, they're still here, if you notice. When I read about Apollonius of Tyana, the medium described the atmosphere of the room, and then the spirit, the angel made this announcement. Apollonius of Tyana, he called who he was. You look up Apollonius of Tyana in the first century, he lived during the first century, within the first 100 years, whatever. He said like 96, 97 when he died. So he lived that whole first century for the most part. So he came back in spirit from the first century in the 1890s. He came. So that, what does that tell you? First, that his spirit's still here. Apollonius of Tyana, who lived in the 1st century, damn near 2,000 years later, is still earthbound. No, or not necessarily earthbound, atmospheric bound. He didn't ascend to Etheria yet. And he was a high, pure, righteous person during his day on earth. And he's still here. He ain't even ascended to the Etherian realms yet. So what does that say for us? So like we may be here the whole 3,000 years of Cosmon before we get the hell up out of here and get to Etheria if he's still in the lower heavens. And then you got some of these other ones that comes in spirit. Vesapian, it had Constantine on there. All these people are still here in the lower heavens of the earth that existed in the 1st century, coming on even on to the 3rd century. So I find that interesting. You know how we do. Creator is undefeated. You already know. You already know that. We've been on here for 3 hours and 17 minutes. We're going to go ahead and push out. You know what I mean? You know how we do. Creator gang in the building. Salute to the gods and goddesses. And you know what we going to do? We're going to go ahead and push on out. You know why? Because it's a blood clot vibes. Salute, family. We out of here.